The only thing he wished for was to be happy, to fall in love one day, to laugh in the company of good friends, and to live a completely ordinary school life. That was what he had always asked for. But reality had other plans. On Monday, he was beaten up. On Tuesday, toilet water was dumped on him. On Wednesday, his personal photos were leaked online. And on Thursday, he found himself planning his permanent journey to the metaphysical world. Today was Friday, and as he stood on the edge, he thought surely, if he fell from that height, it would be fatal. Yet, a small part of him wondered if he might survive if he landed in the bushes. All he needed to do was calculate his trajectory to ensure he fell just right. Before he could take any action, a girl appeared, her voice breaking through his dark thoughts. "Hey, there's someone else here too," she called out, her tone light and casual. He hadn't thought anyone else would be around, and now he felt a rush of panic. What was he supposed to do? Glancing quickly at her, he noticed she turned halfway around, her curiosity piqued. He tried to ask her to wait, worried she might call for help, but what she did next took him completely by surprise. With a swift motion, she caught a bird with her bare hands. "A crow," she said, holding it up for him to see. "Its body has been lying here on the terrace," she explained, her eyes sparkling with an odd mix of excitement and sadness. Then, as if sensing the weight of his despair, she asked, "Is it your wish to be as alive as this crow? Because if you're planning to go through with it, it would be much better to hand your life over to me instead." At first, he was taken aback, struggling to comprehend her proposal. Dying was a great waste, she insisted, and there were still so many fun things to experience in life. Her words ignited a spark of anger within him. "You don't know anything about me," he shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface. "You can't just say what's best for my life." He assumed she had come to mock him, to add to his misery. But the girl shook her head, her expression earnest. "That's not why I'm here," she said softly. "I want to give your life a better purpose." Her words hung in the air, and he felt a flicker of curiosity. What did she mean by that? She continued, asking him what came to mind when he looked at the crow. Did he find its lifeless body cute? He couldn't help but grimace at the thought. "Not even slightly beautiful," he replied, disgust evident on his face. To his surprise, she agreed, explaining that the body was just a stinking, rotten pile of garbage. "Garbage," she said, her voice steady. "That's exactly how you're treated at school, like an idiot, like human trash. That crow is in a better place than you are, only becoming garbage after its death. You, on the other hand, are a piece of garbage even while alive." Her words struck him like a slap. Was that really how he felt? "Is that why you want to end your own existence?" she asked gently. He nodded, the weight of his despair pressing down on him. But even as he stood on the edge, contemplating his fate, she remained there, as if she were offering him a lesson in life. "What do you intend with all this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Despite their conversation, she showed no intention of stopping him from doing what he wanted. She didn't know anything about him, but she could tell that he surely must have a miserable life. Framing him between her fingers, she asked him to tell her more. "Would you really be okay with being trash for the rest of your life?" That question ignited a fire within him, making him angry. Deep down, there was a part of him that disagreed with that notion. He wanted a normal life, to have friends, to laugh like other people do. Even though having a girlfriend felt completely out of reach, he longed to live the best days of his youth. The girl noticed the shift in his expression, understanding better how he felt. Clinging to the railing, she leaned closer, her eyes sparkling with determination. "I can guarantee you a life like that," she declared, her words leaving him completely stunned. She began climbing the railing to get closer to him. "If you're interested in finishing your years at school, you should hand over control of your life to me. You'll become my puppet, and only then will you be happy." The idea was absurd, yet a part of him was intrigued. "And since you want a girlfriend, if you really become my puppet, I wouldn't mind helping you with that in any way I can." It was a tempting offer, and he found himself considering it. "Do you wish for that to happen?" she asked, her gaze unwavering. Still a little hesitant, he replied, "That's not what I want." Suddenly, the girl grabbed him by the knot of his tie, her grip firm and unyielding. "We're doing this now," she exclaimed, jumping off the ledge. As they fell, she proposed a condition. If they both survived, he would have to become her puppet. As the ground rushed toward them, he wondered if this was really happening. Death felt imminent, and in those fleeting moments, he recalled the unpleasant moments from his life. Any reason had been enough for him to endure humiliation, repeated situations that he no longer wanted to be a victim of. During those moments, he always wondered why this happened to him, feeling completely powerless to express his anger. He just hoped that all those people who had tormented him would rot in hell. Then, the fall was over. They landed in the bushes, and he felt a sharp pain shoot through his body. Soon, he began to agonize, possibly having broken his arm during the fall. Beside him, the girl smiled at everything that had happened, unfazed by the pain. "See? The fall wasn't dangerous enough to end our lives," she said cheerfully. She grabbed his arms, her grip surprisingly gentle. "From now on, you'll be my puppet," she declared. "It's time for us to start understanding each other better." Once again, she emphasized that he had become her puppet, and she would manipulate the strings that controlled him. "Imagine yourself as a remote control car," she instructed, her tone playful yet serious. He still didn't fully understand why she was doing this, but for her, the reason was simple. She was tired of living her own life, so she decided to control someone else's. In doing so, she believed she could create the perfect life for that person. Kneeling before him, she swore she would lead him to a perfect and happy life, but only if he agreed to become her puppet. The boy was now intrigued, wondering if he could truly be happy. If it were possible, he didn't mind being a puppet. The only thing he desired was to be happy. Sensing his uncertainty, the girl smiled and said, "Yes, happiness is possible. And now, here's your first command for a happy life." She leaned closer, her face inches from his, and asked him to close his eyes. He complied, heart racing with anticipation. Then, she kissed him, as if they were lovers. Of all the possible things that could happen, this one definitely hadn't crossed his mind. It made him thoughtful, wondering why he had been suddenly kissed. The girl explained, "A kiss releases hormones in the body, like oxytocin, the happiness hormone. It puts your body in a euphoric state. One of my goals is for all my puppets to be happy. A story with a happy ending is always better to watch. That's why you will be happy. But to achieve that, you must obey all my commands. I don't need a disobedient puppet, and if you ever rebel, I will break you." He felt a chill run down his spine at her words, but there was also a strange comfort in her certainty. "Now, here's another command," she continued. "I want you to share one of your desires." He hesitated, unsure of what to say. To make it easier for him to understand, she asked, "What would you wish for if you wanted a happy life and met a magical genie? If you could wish for anything, what would it be?" After a moment of contemplation, he finally spoke. "I would want to take revenge on everyone who bullied me." The girl's eyes lit up with excitement. "That's an excellent idea. You've done very well in revealing your desire, because now I will fulfill it." His heart raced at her words. This was his wish, and it seemed to please her immensely. Patting his head, she assured him, "I will make this wish come true." The day passed, and he returned home, lying in bed with his arm bandaged from the injury he sustained in the fall. As he reflected on the girl, he thought she was just a weirdo. Even though she said she would fulfill his wish, nothing had changed. It would have been better if he had just died. Looking back, he realized that since his first day at school, nothing had gone well. It was hard to believe he had been bullied for such trivial things. His life really didn't seem worth anything at all. As he lay there, he wished that tomorrow would never come. But he knew he had to go back to school. When he arrived, he found the chair he sat in was completely vandalized. Someone couldn't believe he had come back. The boy sneered, "The trash is making the whole room stink." He was surprised that he had broken his arm. "I guess you must have fallen and felt a lot of pain," the bully taunted. He wanted to write something on the cast of his arm, but didn't know what to write. Knowing he was about to be humiliated, he didn't let the guy write anything. After that reaction, the boy seemed to lose interest. "You're such a buzzkill. Just go sit down already," he said dismissively. However, that behavior wasn't normal, leaving him thoughtful as he made his way to his seat. Just then, someone shouted that they would show the others something really cool. The guy who said it always did whatever he wanted, and as expected, he kicked the boy from behind. The force of the impact sent him crashing to the ground, dragging some desks and chairs along with him. The jerk bragged about his clean and well-executed kick, looking around for validation. "Did anyone record that?" he asked, and one of his friends chimed in that they had. They all laughed, entertained by the recording, saying it turned out really cool. Meanwhile, the boy who had been assaulted stood back up, a clear sign that he was ready for round 2. This time, the jerk planned to use his fists. Before the assault could continue, a girl entered the classroom, drawing everyone's attention. It was the same girl who had interacted with him the other day. She wanted to know what they were doing, but the jerk immediately found her very attractive. Interested, he asked which class she belonged to. The person who seemed to be the teacher explained that the girl was part of this class since she was a transfer student. He was surprised to learn she was a transfer student, even more so when he saw her waving at him. Upon hearing this, the jerk questioned why the teacher hadn't informed him earlier. The girl replied that she had announced it during the previous day's assembly. Realizing he had missed that, the jerk apologized for not listening and, being polite, asked for the girl's name. She introduced herself as Tamada Kubo and wrote her name on the blackboard. Approaching the jerk, she said it was a pleasure to meet him. Seeing that even her name was beautiful, he wanted her phone number. To his delight, she shared it without hesitation, using a QR code. The jerk added her to his friend list, expressing his wish for them to get along. The protagonist observed the interaction with a mix of sadness and disbelief until Tamada looked at him with interest. "What's your name?" she asked, walking over to him and completely ignoring the jerk. She mentioned that she had missed the chance to ask his name the day before. He stuttered a little before answering. "Kudo. That's a very nice name," she said, smiling brightly. "I'm happy to have met you." To the jerk, the fact that the girl showed any interest in Kudo was a sign that she had something loose in her head. He began sharing embarrassing stories about Kudo, walking up to him. "Why should I care about that?" Tamada asked, her tone genuine. "In my honest opinion, it sounds like you're about to tell a very boring story." She looked at the teacher, asking where her seat was. The teacher informed her that she would be sitting next to Kudo. For her, this was definitely fate, and she was thrilled at the chance to sit beside him. The jerk, watching everything unfold like a spectator, was left speechless. He was completely unable to understand why Tamada had chosen the other guy, Kaiba, and not him. In his mind, Kaiba was just a loser who had stepped in dog poop. It felt surreal that she would pick him over someone like Kudo. This couldn't be happening. Fueled by jealousy, he pulled out his phone, ready to humiliate Kudo once again. He planned to invite the new girl to a virtual group and post a video of Kudo being humiliated during lunch break. As the lunch bell rang, Kudo and Tamada decided to eat together. Kudo hesitated, wanting to know if she couldn't eat with someone else, but Tamada refused. After all, this was the perfect opportunity for a strategic meeting. As he munched on his sandwich, he still didn't fully grasp what she was suggesting. Sensing his confusion, she asked if he had completely forgotten what had happened the day before. Defensively, "We're gonna get revenge on everyone who bullied you," she said, her eyes sparkling with determination. She told him she had been invited to join the class's virtual group, and even showed him the invitation. Among the videos, there was one where Kudo was being humiliated. The jerk, who had been so eager for Tamada's attention, was clearly upset about being rejected. As Kudo watched the video of himself being humiliated, he felt a wave of shame wash over him. "Please don't watch that," he pleaded. But Tamada shrugged it off. "There's no need to react like that. I've already seen it," she replied casually. "I feel embarrassed when I'm naked too." Kudo's frustration grew. The situation was truly miserable. "You shouldn't have watched it," he snapped, feeling humiliated all over again. To her, it might have been a simple embarrassment, but for him, it was much worse, something he didn't want anyone to see. "Is that truly what you wish for?" she asked, tilting her head. "Wasn't that video published on a public platform?" He confirmed that it definitely wasn't in the group. She smiled maliciously, her eyes glinting with mischief. "If that's the case, we could post the original video ourselves." The suggestion was completely absurd. Kudo thought about it, horrified. "No one in their right mind would do something so humiliating," he exclaimed. He even wondered if she had heard anything he said, as he hated that video. "Is it your wish that the video wouldn't go viral?" she asked, her tone serious. He nodded, confirming that was indeed what he wanted. Knowing this, she pressed on. "Do you truly want to take revenge on those who bullied you?" Kudo hesitated. "There are other ways to get revenge on those people," he said, trying to regain some control over the conversation. Tamada raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "If that's the case, How do you intend to carry out your revenge? As she observed him, he realized he didn't know what to do. He could change his tactics, but that would come at a cost. The brutal nature of reality hit him hard. There was no revenge without risk. It was impossible for him to be so naive as not to know this, and he felt completely disappointed. The girl, however, seemed to sympathize with his situation. She reminded him that just the day before, he had been on the verge of taking his own life. If you were strong enough to stand on that ledge, this situation is no big deal, she said, her tone encouraging. Who knows? Maybe you lacked the courage to carry out what you had planned yesterday. Agitated, he insisted. I'm determined to follow through with my plan. The girl smiled with a certain satisfaction. If you're truly determined, this situation won't be difficult at all. I've even created an account and taken the trouble to write the post for you. All you need to do is press the button to upload the content. He listened, intrigued yet apprehensive. The video description was peculiar. They would pretend to be bullying him, as if the one responsible for it was blatantly confessing the crime they had committed. This is a much more secure way to draw justice to this cause, she explained. That single video will capture everyone's attention. Since the account is new, it doesn't have any followers yet. But by adding some viral hashtags, it will be easy to make the content popular. Your video of humiliation will undoubtedly set the internet ablaze, and all we need to do after that is let society deliver its justice. Worried, he imagined the potential fallout. This could cause numerous problems for my school, he said, anxiety creeping into his voice. The girl wisely reminded him, the school doesn't care about you. In fact, you're the only person capable of saving yourself. It doesn't need to make sense to worry about adults who aren't willing to help you. If you don't do this, you'll end up miserable for the rest of your life, and that's not the outcome you want for yourself. Trying to comfort him, she added, it's okay, you just need to do as I instruct, and that way, you'll surely be happy. Besides, I'll always be here to protect you. With the phone in his hand, he hesitated for a moment before posting. With a single click, the video now belonged to the internet. At first, he thought no one had noticed what was happening. Surely, no one would pay attention since it was posted from an account with no followers. However, as seconds passed, reactions began pouring in. Many people started reacting to his post, and with that, numerous new followers began joining. Likewise, people began expressing outrage at the bully's behavior. He was so shocked by the immediacy of it all that he dropped his phone on the floor behind him. The girl congratulated him, saying he had done a great job. She picked up the phone from the floor, saying that all they needed to do now was wait. So it's better to head back to class? She suggested. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the school, a student ran up to the bully with alarming news. The bully had no idea what was happening, so his classmate urged him to check the class group. Even he found it hard to believe what he was seeing. It's just a post on the internet, he scoffed. It's not a big deal. Soon, people will forget about it, and no one will find our school. Even if they did, no one would have the courage to show up here. As he walked away, a strange guy asked, "Are you sure no one would really have the courage?" It didn't seem like it, but that guy was a streamer who specialized in this kind of content. The bully, however, didn't understand what that meant. He didn't even know there was a niche for this on the internet. The guy may not have looked like much, but he had 5,000 followers. The jerk was impressed. That really seemed pretty cool. Today, the boy was going to be a guest in one of his live streams. Still confused about what was happening, the jerk felt uncomfortable with the approach. In a moment of frustration, he slapped the guy across the face. The streamer turned to his phone, eyes wide, and asked if people had seen that. "Did you just hit me?" he exclaimed. The jerk stammered that it was an accident, but the streamer wasn't buying it. "Is that really the excuse you're going to use? Is that what you tell your victims too?" The jerk tried to defend himself, saying they were just joking around. The streamer looked back at his phone, addressing his audience. "This guy thinks it's just a joke," he said incredulously. "Without a doubt, he's a piece of trash. And among pieces of trash, he's the worst. It's people like him who ruin the society we live in." With that, the streamer declared he had to teach the jerk a lesson. Judgment came quickly as he started beating up the bully. The jerk cried out in pain after being hit, still having the audacity to ask why he was being beaten. Unfortunately, The livestream got blurry because the guy was too busy hitting the jerk while holding the camera. But he still managed to ask his audience if they saw what had happened. Some viewers commented that hitting the jerk was going too far, but the streamer defended himself. "I didn't hit him, he's wearing the channel's badge. Everyone who wears it consents to be on the stream." In the end, he claimed it was all an act, and that the jerk was exceptional at playing his role. Looking at his phone, he assured his audience that no one had actually gotten hurt. A discussion started among viewers, with some defending the streamer, saying he only retaliated against the jerk's aggression. Meanwhile, the piece of trash continued standing there in the background, bewildered and humiliated. The streamer had one last question for the jerk. "Why did you bully that boy?" The jerk took a moment to respond, thinking hard about what had really motivated him to do that. He remembered seeing Kudo walking with perfect posture, thinking he seemed like a really cool guy. That's why he had approached him. He recalled overhearing some girls talking about Kudo as he entered and thought Kudo must be very popular. By distracting him, he had caused Kudo to step in dog poop. It was unfortunate because Kudo had seemed to be wearing new sneakers. Nearby, two girls approached the jerk, and the first thing he said about Kudo was that he had stepped in dog poop. The girls immediately told him to stop teasing Kudo, insisting it wasn't funny at all. "It's like slipping on a banana peel," he retorted, trying to defend his joke. But the girls shot back that that kind of humor suited him. Unfunny and immature. He claimed it was better for Kudo because now he had a funny story to tell. But Kudo was upset. He shrugged the jerk's hand off his shoulder and said, "It's not funny at all." At first, the jerk was left speechless, not liking the way Kudo looked at him. He then tried to explain that what he really wanted was to be friends with Kudo, but the streamer didn't buy that narrative. "You're just playing the victim to avoid judgment," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "It's truly pathetic." With that, he wiped the front of his shoe on the jerk's face, a final act of humiliation. Back at school, Kudo heard what had happened. It seemed the jerk had been attacked during lunch, and students started talking about how it really had gone down. The school contacted the authorities, and the culprit had already been arrested as a result of the beating. The jerk needed medical attention, and the teacher told everyone to go home early that day. The class was abuzz with gossip about what had happened to him. Kudo began to realize the implications of the situation. The girl beside him thought this was a beneficial outcome for him because, with this incident, they had achieved their goal. From now on, there was no one left to bully him. However, Kudo wasn't sure if this was the right decision. As they talked, the video continued spreading on the internet, and to be honest, he was completely terrified about it. But that wasn't the only thing he felt. The girl suggested that they skip school tomorrow and go out on a date instead. Completely enchanted, Kudo wanted to see what future she had in store for him. He went back home, unable to stop thinking about how she had proposed to go on a date. Because of that, he couldn't get a single minute of sleep. He started wondering if he had even combed his hair, only to realize he was beginning to feel anxious. He was just an ordinary guy, yet this beautiful girl had decided to go out with him. The thought made his heart race. The next day, she was very happy to see him and asked why he was wearing his school uniform. He explained that his parents would know if he went out in anything other than his school clothes, so he planned to change in the bathroom. She understood and said he could change now. Once in the bathroom, he had no idea what to do. He felt completely content at that moment. But a nagging thought lingered in the back of his mind. He was certain that she must be dangerous in some way. Yet she was too beautiful, and like any other guy, he had a weakness for gorgeous women. When he returned to her, he saw a few guys trying to flirt with her. As soon as she noticed Kudo approaching, she walked over to him with a smile on her face. "You took quite a while," she said playfully. The guys backed off, assuming she must have a boyfriend. Once they were together, Tamada asked if they could go to the aquarium. As they entered, Kudo felt a wave of excitement wash over him. Everything there was so beautiful. It almost felt like a dream. Tamada found the marine animals fascinating, her eyes lighting up as she marveled at the size of the whale shark. They spent the day taking lots of photos and observing all sorts of creatures. Even the dessert they ordered was beautifully presented. Sitting at the table, Tamada asked if Kudo was enjoying himself. "I am," he replied, and it was nice to see her smile at his response. Once seated, he gathered the courage to ask why she had invited him on this date. She explained that she did it with his future in mind. At first, he couldn't understand how this outing related to his future, but she elaborated. In the future, you'll want to fall in love and go on dates, she said. This date is an introductory lesson to teach you how to shape your behavior and present yourself as someone interesting. You need to gather some experience, otherwise, you might ruin your first real date. So, today is nothing more than a bit of practice. Intrigued, Kudo asked if she would like to date him. But before he could finish his sentence, she said, no. More directly, she explained that she didn't even like him that way. After all, they barely knew each other, and she wasn't interested in romance at all. All I want is to keep playing with my puppets, she said. I'm here to pull the strings and guide you toward a happy life. To me, you're just a puppet. Nothing more, nothing less. Despite her bluntness, they continued to enjoy the day, taking photos and having fun until it was time to say goodbye. She thanked him for the pleasant day and asked if he'd be able to get home on time. Since it wasn't very late, he assured her it wouldn't be a problem. Knowing that, she finally said goodbye, mentioning that she would turn the photos from that day into an album. Kudo felt grateful for the memories they had created together. Just then, a familiar vibrating sound from his phone broke the moment. It was his father calling. When he answered, he was met with a torrent of complaints. His father had found out he had skipped school. The teacher had just called him, leaving Kudo feeling humiliated. His father's voice was harsh as he told him not to bother coming home, wishing he would die on his way back. Only a despicable father could say something like that to his own child. This was one of the reasons Kudo hated talking to him. His father never thought about the impact of his words. Knowing he was in trouble now, Tamada asked if he was okay. She apologized, saying it was her fault for making him skip school that day. But it's fine, he replied, trying to brush it off. He had accepted the invitation, knowing the risks involved. Intrigued, she asked if he didn't get along with his family. Not at all, he admitted. We barely look each other in the eye. She apologized for bringing it up, saying people should appreciate their families. However, she added that he wasn't obligated to do so. Looking at him, it was clear how much this situation hurt him. No matter who it is, telling someone to die is always cruel. If Kudo didn't like his family, Tamada suggested he run away. You could come with me if you wanted, she offered casually. But for someone who didn't even like him that way, he thought it was strange for her to say such things. He couldn't just start depending on her unconditional love. That's out of context, she replied, sensing his hesitation. Since I have no feelings for you, I have no expectations, whether physical or romantic. In other words, I have no ulterior motives. The only thing I want is to save you. Isn't that good enough? As her words sank in, Kudo's memory started to blur. It was that day when everything changed. It was exactly on that day that he felt he had fallen in love with her. The realization hit him hard, and he was sure he had developed feelings for her. Tamada then suggested they head home, adding that they should buy some snacks at a convenience store and throw a little party. Do you like watching movies? She asked. I rent movies weekly. Kudo admitted he liked them too, and they made their way to the convenience store to buy what they needed. As they walked, there was something Kudo wanted to say to Tamada. He wanted to thank her for everything she had done for him, but she brushed it off, saying she hadn't done anything extraordinary. She also noted that calling her by her family name didn't make them sound like friends, so he could call her by her first name. That left Kudo flustered. She tried to get him to say her name, but he couldn't manage it. Embarrassed, he ended up apologizing to her. He also thanked her for sponsoring their shopping trip, since they were able to buy plenty of snacks. Pointing to a building, she said, I live there. Kudo looked at the structure, noticing it was a massive building. Apparently, she lived in a high-end place. Opening the door, she invited him inside. This is a very spacious apartment, Kudo remarked, taking in the surroundings. He asked about her parents, but she said they weren't there. I live completely alone in this apartment, she added. Sitting on the sofa, she asked him to keep her company. Do you have any movie preferences? She inquired. Kudo replied that anything would do, but there was one movie he was curious about. He had heard it was very good. They agreed to watch that movie, and as they sat on the couch, Kudo reflected on how peaceful it all felt. He wished intensely for that moment to last forever. But then, his phone started ringing again. It was his dad. Tamada noticed his expression change and said, "It's okay, you should answer it." Stepping outside, Kudo hesitated, wanting to know what his dad wanted. After all, he was still his father, and maybe he was genuinely worried. On the other end of the line, Kudo replied that he was at a friend's house and had been allowed to stay the night. That only made his dad angrier. "You need to come home immediately," he ordered, his voice rising. "I know you're at a girl's house. Young boys like you are too naive." He added that he was on his way to pick Kudo up. The whole situation frustrated Kudo further. His dad had him attacked, and now he didn't want to go home at all. Opening the door, Tamada asked if he was okay. She had overheard everything and apologized, noting that his dad tended to talk loudly. "Since he's upset, it might be better for you to go home," she suggested. But then she remembered he didn't need to leave since his dad said he would come to pick him up. "We might as well stay and wait for his arrival," she concluded. To Kudo's dismay, his dad's arrival was quicker than expected. He was already waiting outside, demanding Kudo come down immediately. "I tracked you using your phone's GPS," he shouted. The realization that there was an app spying on his phone only made Kudo angrier. Tamada asked if they should head down, but Kudo noticed an envelope in her hands. "I'll convince your father that you don't need to go home," she said confidently. Kudo didn't understand, but she ordered him to stay at the entrance, insisting he wasn't to disobey her. Without any manners, his father called her a whore who had seduced his son, adding that she even dressed like one. Kudo imagined this wouldn't end well. Not knowing what his father was capable of, he thought he should go outside too. As soon as his father saw him, he declared that Kudo was going home with him. In response, Tamada handed the man the envelope she was holding. It was full of money, and she had prepared it for emergencies like this. "Take the money and leave Kudo with me," she said firmly. Kudo was confused, assuming it must be some kind of prank. "It's not a prank," she insisted, asking if 1 million wasn't enough. "You're the kind of father no mother would give up her child for. Especially not for dirty money." His father scoffed, saying she must have gotten that money by selling her body since she looked like a slut. Kudo tried to ask his father to stop, but Tamada pressed on. "Think of other ways to make money," she suggested. "But you probably believe a woman can only get money that way. You're truly an uncreative and pitiful man. With you as a father, Kudo will never have a happy life." Irritated, his father shot back. "It's not up to you to decide that." But Tamada wasn't finished. "Why did you tell your son to die?" she asked, her voice steady. The man replied, "I did it for his own good. When I was his age, my bosses used to say the same thing. Weak people have no place in this world. They were tough on me so I could learn that too." Inevitably, Tamada laughed after hearing this, and Kudo could see the disbelief in her eyes. His father didn't understand the impact of his words. What was so funny? Kudo's father snapped, his anger palpable. Tamada replied, "It's an utterly ridiculous story. It only shows that you can't be bothered to care about your son. In fact, you probably don't care about him at all." She wanted to know what he would do if his son actually died. The man scoffed. "People don't just die because someone tells them to. Contrary to what you think, they absolutely do. And very easily," Tamada shot back. "Especially when the person saying it is their parent. It's impossible for you not to know how your son feels. After all, you're Kudo's father." Convinced, the man insisted he did know how the boy had been feeling. "Even so, I call him a coward. That's why I'm teaching him to be a man." Tamada countered, "You have the wrong impression. Words alone don't count as education. After talking to you, I finally understand. You're completely unnecessary for Kudo's happiness. I will be the one responsible for it." The man only grew angrier, saying she didn't know anything. "Are you planning to marry my son?" he asked incredulously. "Having a peaceful family to raise a child in is the first step to a happy life," she explained. "To ensure he has such a future, I will help Kudo boost his popularity, intelligence, achievements, and more. But I won't be the one to build a family with him. I will simply act as his control tower. From this day forward, I will show Kudo how to be happy under my guidance." Such a bold statement left them both deep in thought. To Kudo's father, it was all a joke. After all, she was just a kid. "If you're truly capable of doing that, prove it to me now," he challenged. Taking her phone, Tamada said she wouldn't waste any more time. She began talking to her father about something they had discussed earlier. "Do it immediately," she instructed before ending the call. The man didn't understand what was happening until his own phone started ringing. To his surprise, it was the company president. Tamada urged him to answer. It must be urgent. When he picked up, the person on the other end apologized for the sudden call. They expressed gratitude for his work, but said it was necessary to let him go. "We apologize for this decision," they said, "and we ask that you don't hold a grudge. We also have families to support." When the call ended, Kudo's father turned to Tamada, his expression a mix of disbelief and anger. "Was this your doing?" "Indeed it was," she replied calmly. "I asked my father to do this for me. Are you familiar with the Tamada Real Estate Group?" He knew exactly who they were. That company had bought the business he worked for, and it was led by her father. "So you asked your father to fire me?" he asked incredulously. Tamada nodded. "I wouldn't even mind asking my father to rehire you, but if you continue being resistant, I will ensure you won't be hired anywhere else." Frustrated, Kudo accused Tamada of joking, but she confirmed it was no bluff. "Now it's up to you to decide what to do," she said, her tone serious. "The fact remains, you've been fired. As a grown man, you should know what the right choice is." The man collapsed to the floor in disappointment, realizing he had no choice. Tamada extended the envelope toward him, and he grabbed it, completely furious. It seemed he had made the right decision after all. Turning back to Kudo, she said, "I've removed an obstacle from your path. Now we can go back to watching the movie peacefully." She grabbed him by the arm, hurrying him along. Kudo returned to the apartment, still incredulous about what had just happened. "I only did it because you insisted," he said, trying to process the whirlwind of events. Now he wanted to know what Kudo's relationship with her was. It wasn't for him to dwell on, so he decided to ask the boy directly. Back in the apartment, they settled in to finish watching the movie. Kudo felt a huge burden lift off his shoulders. With Tamada's intervention, he wouldn't have to deal with his father anymore. But at the same time, he wasn't sure if this was the right decision. He was still a minor, and leaving home was never a good idea. Even so, he felt a great deal of gratitude toward her and was thankful to have a place to stay. Yet, uncertainty gnawed at him, especially since he had cut ties with everyone in his life. Those people were still his family, and he couldn't help but wonder what his mother would say when she found out. She probably wouldn't say anything, as she always followed behind his father. Noticing he seemed deep in thought, Tamada asked if something was wrong. "Are you worried about what just happened?" she inquired. "If that's the case, I won't judge you. After all, you've just been separated from your family." She assured him everything would be fine. "I promise to make you happy," she swore. Kudo wanted to know why she always acted that way. The movie finally ended, and she said it had been a lot of fun. Kudo agreed, admitting he had been deeply moved by the story. The final scene had been great, but Tamada thought it was bordering on cliché. She suggested another movie to watch next, and Kudo couldn't believe they were going to watch a second film. "Do you not want to?" she asked, a teasing glint in her eye. "No, I would actually love to," he replied, feeling a rush of excitement. They ended up watching a romance movie, a classic choice for anyone having a date at home. Tamada told him that all of this would serve as practice for his future. Kudo didn't believe something like that could happen to him, but for now, she just wanted them to enjoy the movie. Usually, he didn't watch this type of film, so he felt a bit nervous. Then came a kissing scene on the screen that lasted much longer than he expected. It was definitely way too embarrassing for Kudo. That was when Tamada touched his hand, breaking the tension. In moments like this, it's expected that you hold the hand of the person watching with you, she said, demonstrating how it should be done. Taking advantage of their proximity, she suggested they kiss too, but that was too much for him. "We can't do that under any circumstances," he exclaimed, his face flushing. Tamada looked intrigued, as if she were trying to decipher his reaction. "You don't want to kiss me?" she asked, her tone playful. The truth was, he actually would like to kiss her, but he couldn't admit that. "That's exactly why we shouldn't try," he replied, feeling flustered. "You should have more self-respect." She laughed lightly, finding his reasoning nonsensical. "I wouldn't mind kissing you," she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "But that's exactly the problem. It would make me have expectations, and you shouldn't do that to someone you just rejected." Tamada found it odd since he had never confessed to her. "When we were at the aquarium, you said you didn't like me," he reminded her. I'm just defining our positions in this relationship. This left him feeling quite confused. Now she understood why he felt rejected. You're truly a headache sometimes, he said, exasperated. If two people aren't in a relationship, they shouldn't kiss so casually. No matter how much you want me to be happy, you should at least have some morals. With that stance, she said, Fine, I won't kiss you anymore. But thinking about your future, I still wish for you to gain some romantic experience. Hearing that, Kudo was left speechless. Then she proposed that tomorrow at school, they should find him a girlfriend. Let's get straight to the point, she said enthusiastically. You should write your own romantic comedy. She wanted to know if there was a girl he was interested in, but the only thought that came to his mind was that she was the one. Without revealing that, he said, I don't have anyone in mind. I've been bullied for so long that I haven't had time to make friends, let alone develop feelings for someone. Knowing this, Tamada realized they now had a starting point. Things aren't that simple, Kudo insisted, but she assured him he shouldn't worry. You don't have an unattractive face. It's only a matter of time before you get closer to a girl. He wasn't sure if that was a compliment, but she continued, Look over there. She pointed to a girl erasing the blackboard, who seemed to be struggling. Why don't you go help her? Maybe that way you can become her hero. Doing something like that, just because someone told him to, made Kudo feel strange. Kudo approached the girl, asking if she was okay and needed help. In the end, he erased the board for her, feeling a sense of accomplishment as he did so. Once the task was finished, she thanked him with great joy. With a smile on his face, he replied, It was no trouble at all. If you ever need help again, just ask me. The other girl, who had been watching, praised him, saying he had done well. It's only a matter of time before you become popular, she added. Kudo shook his head, insisting it wasn't that easy. But she pointed out he was wrong. Being kind is extremely important and something people often undervalue. Kindness is an aspect of life that's often overlooked by those trying to flirt. Judging by the look on her face, she must have appreciated that small gesture. Kudo didn't fully understand what she meant about writing his own romantic comedy, but he felt a sense of warmth from the interaction. As he was cleaning the floor in the hallway, someone called his name. It was the same girl he had helped earlier. She approached him just to thank him for his assistance. Since he took a while to respond, she reminded him, You helped clean the blackboard. Kudo replied, It was no problem at all. She didn't mean to come all the way just to thank him, but she disagreed. There's something I wanted to say. Though it might seem a bit sudden, she began, but then she became too embarrassed to continue. I'm sorry, she said, blushing. I accidentally bit my tongue. What she really wanted to ask was if he would like to walk her home. This startled him, realizing it would just be the two of them. She quickly added, Don't take it the wrong way. It's simply to grab some donuts, since a new shop opened near the station, and I don't have any friends to go with me. She explained that she was a very shy person. Earlier, Kudo had told her she could ask for help if she needed it. With tears in her eyes, she asked if his silence meant a refusal. He quickly assured her it didn't. I would gladly accompany you, he said, feeling a rush of excitement. Thank you, she said happily. Let's meet after school. As she left, Tamada appeared, teasing him about managing to get a date. But you absolutely can't tell her you're living with another girl. Of course, Kudo wouldn't say that, but he didn't know how to handle the situation. It felt like he was caught in some kind of fake love triangle, and doing this made him feel guilty. Then he remembered that Tamada didn't have any feelings for him. He needed to let go of her as soon as possible. He didn't know what the future held, but it was important for him to make friends and expand his horizons. Before, that had been completely impossible due to excessive bullying. Finally, he could enjoy what life had to offer. As he was about to leave, Tamada had one more request for him. Even if you go on the date, I want to hear all about it, she said, handing him a pen that was actually a disguised microphone. You'll also need to wear these earphones, she added, revealing they were listening devices so she could tell him what to say. That way you can follow my instructions even if we're apart. Just remember, don't try anything funny. As Kudo bid farewell to Tamada, she wished him good luck on his date. It felt like an enormous weight had been placed on his shoulders. While he was lost in thought, the girl he was going on a date with approached him, asking if he had been waiting long. He replied that he hadn't, and together they left the school, heading toward the station. Kudo was fully equipped with the listening device and earphones, which felt a bit strange. Through the earphones, Tamada asked if he could hear her. When he confirmed he could, he tapped his ear twice as instructed. Now, he needed to pay attention to her words and repeat them one by one. "Start immediately," she instructed. He assumed this had to be a joke, but he went along with it. Kudo asked the girl if she liked donuts. "Yes," she replied enthusiastically. Based on her response, he said, "I really like that kind of sweet treat too." He felt like he was almost dying of embarrassment as he repeated his words. Finally, they arrived at the donut shop she had mentioned. The girl kept guiding him, and he admitted, "This is my first time here." It wasn't the kind of store he usually went to. Looking at the items, he said they all seemed delicious, but there were so many it was hard to choose. The girl said she'd love to try them all, but 2 donuts would be too much for her to eat alone. "I know exactly how you feel about that," he replied, feeling a little more at ease. After that, the girl seemed to have something else on her mind. She pointed out that the words he was saying didn't seem like they came from him. "Why do you have an earpiece in your ear?" she asked. Her curiosity piqued. Through his earpiece, he heard Tamada suggest that he propose they share the same donut. Looking at the girl, he followed the suggestion. He thought she might not want to do that, given her momentary silence. But she surprised him by saying she didn't mind as long as it was with him. That was great. They could place their order. Kudo told her not to worry, because, besides ordering the donut, he'd also get a drink for her. The girl couldn't help but think he was really kind and thoughtful. When he returned to the table with their order, the donuts looked absolutely delicious. She thanked him for his kindness and offered him money to cover her part of the order. He had been instructed not only to refuse the money, but also to say something about it. "Don't worry about the cost," he told her. "It's just another kind gesture from me." The girl insisted she would feel terrible if she didn't pay. Then, through his earpiece, he heard Tamada instruct him to take her hands and say something else. "I'm trying to be a gentleman on this occasion," he said, looking into her eyes. "Please allow it." Overwhelmed, she said that was fine. After all this, she asked if there was a girl Kudo liked. Tamada was thrilled with the progress they were making. He admitted there wasn't anyone he liked at the moment. "That's great," she said, her eyes sparkling. "Because if you liked someone, I'd have to kill them." What she said was absurd, and Kudo thought, "This girl is crazy." With a smile on her face, she added, "I'm just joking." Repeating the words from his earpiece, he told her, "You're very intense and almost gave me a heart attack." After that, the girl seemed to have something else on her mind. She pointed out that the words he was saying didn't seem like they came from him. "Why do you have an earpiece in your ear?" she asked. Her curiosity piqued. Kudo felt a rush of panic. He had to think quickly. It's just a new thing I'm trying out," he stammered, trying to sound casual. But the girl wasn't convinced. "Really? It seems a bit suspicious." Kudo knew he had to remove the device, but he hesitated. Tamada realized she couldn't help Kudo anymore. He explained that before meeting her, he had been listening to music and had forgotten he still had the earpiece on. But those words didn't convince her. She believed he still wasn't telling her the truth. Kudo noticed a sudden shift in her mood as the girl started crying, thinking that in the end, he didn't care about her at all. Kudo tried to fix the situation, insisting that wasn't true. "It's fine," she said, wiping her tears. "I know that an amazing guy like you would never pay attention to someone like me." She apologized, assuming he must just want to go home now. "That's not how I feel at all," he replied earnestly. "I've really enjoyed talking to you." He asked if she was still interested in going on more dates with him. She said she was interested in continuing the conversation, and once they were done, she wanted to know if he would be interested in going to her house. Kudo was a little surprised by the proposal. She noticed his hesitation and assumed he might not want to. He didn't know what to do. Going with her would mean leaving Tamada waiting, but he couldn't leave the girl alone in this emotional state. After a moment of deliberation, he agreed to go with her, regretting that he'd have to keep Tamada waiting. He set a condition: he wouldn't stay long at her place. Once inside her home, he asked for permission to enter and inquired if she lived alone. She said yes, explaining that her parents were very busy, but sent her money to support herself. "I'm very grateful for the parents I have," she said, smiling. She asked him to make himself comfortable while she prepared some tea. Kudo offered to help with anything, not realizing what she was about to do. Suddenly, she struck him on the head with a vase with brutal force. There was nothing he could do but fall to the ground as blood gushed from the wound. Finally, she said, "I'm going to borrow your phone for a moment." She had suspected he had been lying to her the whole time. Checking his messages, she confirmed he had been talking to another girl. "You need to learn a small lesson," she said coldly, "and I'll do this for the other girl's sake as well." Just then, Tamada appeared, saying this girl was even more interesting than she initially thought. Kudo could only feel his consciousness slowly fading away as he succumbed to the darkness. When he woke up, he found his body completely tied up. Above him was the crazy girl, wearing nothing but her underwear, looking delighted that he was awake. He became nervous, not understanding why she was nearly naked. "I didn't want to stay in my clothes with blood," she explained casually, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. This made him extremely anxious. "I'm going to begin punishing you right away," she said, her tone chilling. "You pretended to like that other girl and played with her heart. For that, I will never forgive you." Kudo desperately insisted that it was never his intention to hurt anyone and asked who this girl was that the crazy girl was talking about. She told him she was referring to Arara Rio, but Kudo was taken aback when she confirmed that the girl was insane for referring to herself in the third person. "Actually, I'm the older sister," she clarified, her tone unsettlingly calm. "My name is Rina." To Kudo, this was strange as they looked identical. Rina explained that this was expected since they shared the same body. "Have you ever heard the term split personality?" Apparently, this was a new concept for him. Rina continued, saying that their parents had been a bit absent lately, but that hadn't always been the case. "They used to beat me for any reason and often locked me up in the garden shed," she recounted, her voice tinged with bitterness. "I would beg them to let me out, crying for my father to open the door because I was terrified. But the more I screamed, the greater my panic grew, and nothing happened. In that state of complete despair, she wished for someone to save her. That's when the second personality emerged, to ensure she wouldn't feel pain. I needed to use the girl's body for that," Rina explained. "I promised I would protect her, and that's how I came into existence. I exist to protect Rio. I have the right to be happy, and that's why I can't stand men like you who toy with her heart. Now you will regret everything you've done to her." Kudo's heart raced as she revealed her intentions. "I'll start with your eyes," she said, her excitement palpable. "I'll carve up your beautiful little face with the edge of my blade." Desperately, Kudo tried to suggest they could talk about the situation, but she had already passed the point of being able to discuss anything rationally. He attempted to explain what he was actually trying to do with her, but before he could finish, the doorbell rang. "Someone's outside," Rina said, irritation creeping into her voice. "I'll ignore whoever it is." But the persistent ringing prevented her from starting her work. The door was being jiggled, making her wonder if this was some kind of prank. The sound was too suspicious. The person wasn't just manipulating the doorknob, but trying to break in. When the door finally opened, Tamada stepped inside, her eyes widening as she took in the scene. Kudo was completely tied up, and there was a crazy person on top of him. For Tamada, it wasn't difficult to open the door. She had plenty of tricks up her sleeve. "What's happening here is utterly disgusting," she said, her voice firm. Kudo tried to explain that it wasn't what she thought it was and that he desperately needed help. Tamada replied, "All of this only happened because you refused to listen to me." Rina realized the person on the other side of the door was that girl. "I'll kill her too," she declared, her eyes wild with rage. Tamada, unfazed, apologized. "I didn't intend to upset anyone. All I wanted was for Kudo to experience true love." Kudo's statement left Rina thoughtful, as it didn't make sense to her. "That has to be a lie," she said, her voice wavering. "Otherwise, there wouldn't be a need for me to be in his ear telling him what to do." Tamada confirmed that she was mistaken. "You're wrong about that. All I've done is give him instructions. He followed my orders because he entrusted his life to me. What he says, what shoes he wears, every decision from now on will be mine to make. And in the end, he will have a happy life." She asked Rina if she didn't think that was wonderful. The irony of the situation was not lost on Kudo as he watched Rina, still holding a knife, glaring at them. Rina shook her head, her expression darkening. Everything you've said doesn't make sense. You're insane, she spat. I don't consider myself crazy. On the contrary, I'm very resolute about everything I've said. Protecting herself with the knife, she warned them not to mess with her. She aggressively advanced toward Tamada, claiming that Rio was not a toy to be played with. Calm down a bit, someone suggested, trying to diffuse the tension. I'm perfectly calm, Rina shouted, her voice rising. Now shut up. It didn't take long for them to realize that Rina had a severe personality disorder. Tamada, trying to control the situation, said, Rio might feel sad about your actions. If you end the boy's life, you'll become a murderer without even remembering what you've done. After saying this, Rina began to look pensive, the distraction providing just the opening Tamada needed. In a swift motion, she lunged forward and took the knife from Rina's hands. Once disarmed, Rina held Tamada's head with her hands, unexpectedly kissing her. We could all be very happy together, she suggested, her tone shifting. For that to happen, I'll guide you all toward happiness. Kudo felt a mix of confusion and alarm as he watched the scene unfold. Rina's sudden change in demeanor was unsettling. Rio doesn't think that's possible, Kudo said, trying to interject. But Tamada assured Rina, you are capable of making it happen. I know your life has been very harsh up until now, but from now on, you can enjoy it much more. Rina still seemed unsure, her brow furrowing. I have no idea how I can be happy, she admitted. Tamada suggested they start thinking together about possible solutions. The immediate conclusion she reached was that happiness could take many forms. Building a family, dedicating yourself to a hobby, pursuing a career, each person has their own concept of happiness. There are many choices to be made, but I will help you make those decisions. Then she asked, would you like to become my puppet? Rina's expression shifted again, confusion clouding her features. Everything I've heard so far makes no sense at all, she said, her voice trembling. In truth, I seem crazy. Rina found herself in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. It was clearly irrational, yet she could somehow understand it. She just couldn't grasp why Tamada's words sounded so seductive. Her whole being was telling her with all its might not to refuse this opportunity. She wanted to obey Tamada and leave all the decisions of her life in this girl's hands. Finally, she realized that the same thing had happened with Kudo. Your proposal seems utterly ridiculous, she said, but even so, she chose to do as Tamada said. With that, everything was settled between them. Now, there was a very simple order for her to carry out. She was told to kiss the boy tied to the bed. At the end of every fairy tale, the prince and princess kiss and live happily ever after, Tamada explained. If you decide to do as ordered, you will experience all the intensity that romance has to offer. Everything about this exotic girl, from head to toe, made Rina feel as if she were born to command. As soon as she obeyed, Tamada praised her. For our next task, we will punish the boy, and real help will be needed. Kudo, still tied up and confused, had no idea why this was happening. What have I done to deserve this? He pleaded desperately. Tamada replied coldly, you ended the call without permission. Kudo tried to explain, but she dismissed his words. It's not a problem. I'll make you look even better, even though the process may be a little painful. What are you going to do? Kudo asked, panic rising in his chest. Tamada smiled, her eyes glinting with a mix of excitement and malice. I'm going to pierce your tongue. Kudo couldn't believe what he was hearing. No, please, don't do this, he begged, but Tamada simply told him not to pull his tongue back. Desperate, he didn't know how she would pierce his tongue, and that only heightened his fear. Tamada needed help for this, so she asked Rina to open a package for her. We need to sterilize the instruments before using them, she instructed. Kudo was becoming increasingly frightened, realizing this was actually going to happen. The needle she was preparing was truly enormous. Stay still and remember that you're my puppet, Tamada said, her voice steady. Whenever you disobey me, you will be punished. But there's no need for you to be afraid. Just allow it to happen. Pretend you're a baby and let others take care of you. Slowly, she began to pierce his tongue. The needle is almost all the way through, she said, her tone almost clinical. Kudo struggled to hold back tears as he felt the sharp pain radiate through his tongue. A generous amount of blood began to flow, and Tamada turned to Rina. Bring me a towel, she ordered. Rina promptly handed over the item, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. Is he going to be okay? She asked, glancing at Kudo, who was trembling in fear. Tamada assured her, Nothing bad will happen. He just needs to learn his place. In a dimly lit room, tension hung thick in the air. She didn't intend to harm him, but her message was clear. Disobedience had its consequences. Disobedient puppets, after all, must be punished. The girl looming over him had an otherworldly aura, definitely a demon in disguise. Yet, after that charged moment, she softened, cradling him tenderly in her lap. "You've done well to endure," she murmured, her fingers gently stroking his hair as if he were a child. His punishment had ended, and he had behaved admirably throughout. For that, he earned a gentle pat on the head. To her, they were utterly adorable, and she couldn't resist the urge to shower them with affection. "Do you know what people are most obsessed with?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Love. It drives people to madness, makes them obsessive. And for us to become irreplaceable to each other, we should share something a little naughty." Kiba's eyes widened in surprise at her bold proposal. But deep down, he knew it was exactly what he desired. They were on the brink of something exhilarating. As she began to undress before him, he stammered, "We can't do that. It's not ethical." "Exactly," she replied with a playful grin. "That's why it's so enticing. If we share a secret like this, we'll forge a bond that's truly special." She wanted to be more than just a fleeting moment in their lives. She wanted to be unforgettable. "Think about it," she continued, her voice softening. "When I hug you like this, don't you feel comforted? The body releases endorphins that help ease stress and anxiety." She beckoned Rina to join them, and with a nod, she climbed onto the bed beside Kiba. Kiba's heart raced uncontrollably as the three of them lay together. Rina's touch felt warm against him, and he couldn't help but think how much warmer it would be if they were all naked. The mere thought sent his mind spiraling. "Have you ever seen people, together?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Kiba's face flushed. He had never witnessed such things, let alone wanted to think about them. But she was undeterred. "I'd love to see that now. Let's try it together as our little secret. It would be perfect." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You can't say no if you truly like me. Don't disappoint me, Kiba." Rina chimed in, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I can do it too." Kiba's mind raced, wishing for just a moment more to gather his thought. But before he could voice his hesitation, she was already on top of him, her intentions clear. Just as he grappled with the whirlwind of emotions, the apartment door swung open, and a man stepped inside. Kiba's heart sank. He had no idea who this intruder was, but the girl above him greeted him casually. "Dad?" she said, her voice a mix of surprise and defiance. Fury flashed across her father's face as he took in the scene before him. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice booming. "You need to explain yourself." Tomato, unfazed, shot back. "How did you even find me?" "I used a tracking app," he replied, his tone laced with disapproval. "You shouldn't be doing this. You're not married yet." He scooped her up in his arms, his protective instincts kicking in. "Is this Kiba? Are you two dating?" "Calm down, Dad," she said, her composure unnerving him. All she wanted was to see the boy happy, to ensure that everything was all right between them. But concern flickered in her father's eyes as he asked, "Did he force you into this?" Kiba quickly interjected, "I would never do that." The tension in the room was palpable, and the father's gaze shifted between the two young people, demanding an explanation. But Kiba knew there wasn't much to clarify. "We can't explain," he said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Raising a hand to his forehead, the father sighed, deciding it was best to calm down. "I'll talk to you later, Toma," he said, his voice softer now. Kiba was taken aback. This was Tomato's father? He looked much younger than he had expected. "It's curfew time," the father announced, turning to Kiba. "I'll take you home." But before they left, he had something important to discuss with Toma. The boy's heart raced as he realized he would be alone with her father for a car ride, an unexpected twist in an already complicated evening. As they settled into the car, the father's demeanor shifted. "I'm going to ask you a few questions, Kiba," he said, his voice low and serious. "Think carefully before you answer. Your responses will determine a lot." Kiba felt a knot tighten in his stomach as the man pressed the accelerator, the car speeding down the road. "I'm prepared to crash this car into a pole if you don't answer honestly about your relationship with my daughter," he warned, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. The straight stretch of road soon led to a sharp curve next to a cliff. "If you don't want to die today, you better be truthful," he said, his voice a mix of urgency and menace. "Are you two dating?" Kiba shook his head. "No, we're not." The father's expression hardened. So, it's purely physical? No, Kiba protested, his heart racing. The man's intensity was overwhelming, and he hesitated, trying to find the right words. We've kissed, but that's it. The father froze, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. You kissed her? Please, just watch the road, Kiba pleaded, panic rising in his chest. Furious, the man shouted, I'm going to kill you. Kiba's mind raced. I didn't initiate it. She's the one who saved my life. If it weren't for her, I would be dead. The father's expression shifted, confusion mingling with anger. Excuses, he spat, but Kiba pressed on. She deserves respect. She's capable of saving anyone, even if she seems a little wild. I just want to make her happy. Just as he finished, the car veered dangerously close to the guardrail. Kiba's heart dropped as the vehicle broke through the barrier, and time seemed to slow. He felt weightless, suspended in a moment of sheer terror, a spectator in his own life. Memories flooded his mind. Days long past when he had been the youngest secretary to the company president. People whispered that his position was due to the president's fondness for him, but he had always known it was more than that. He had been entrusted with the care of the president's daughter, a little girl who had quickly captured his heart. He remembered her bright smile, the way she had greeted him with a mix of politeness and childlike honesty. You don't have to worry about me, she had said, her voice mature beyond her years. I'll just stay in my room. But he had wanted to play with her, to share in her joy. You're lying, she had teased, catching him off guard. There's no need to be polite. She had always behaved more like an adult than a child, and while that was admirable, it was also perfectly okay for her to be a little selfish. After all, that's how children are meant to be. With a spark of excitement, she suggested they play together, and before he knew it, she was darting around the room, playing tag. But as the game unfolded, concern creased his brow. They were still indoors, and he worried about the boundaries of their play. She, however, was determined to keep running until he caught her. It didn't take long for him to finally tag her, lifting her into his arms. You're full of energy, he chuckled, recognizing that it was normal for a child to be so spirited. Have I been childish enough? She asked, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Her question made him pause. She was certainly different from other children he had known. Next day at office, one of his employees confesses to him and asked, Will you go out with me? His heart warmed at her feelings, but he knew he had to refuse. I appreciate that, but you're already married, he said gently. Tears welled in her eyes as she replied, My marriage is in shambles. You're one of the few people who treats me well, and I thought you might accept me. He felt a pang of sympathy, but he stood firm. Cheating is still wrong. You need to resolve things with your husband. Gradually, she pulled herself together, realizing he was right. I'm sorry for letting my emotions take control, she said, her voice steadier now. He felt grateful for her understanding, recognizing that he had never been able to say no to someone like her. But then she approached him again, frustration etched on her face. You're despicable. Even though I filed for divorce, things are still a mess. Calm down, he urged, but she continued, You said you'd go out with me if I divorced him. I never said that, he replied, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Her tears flowed more freely now. I finalized the divorce because of what you said. You should have rejected me from the start. He felt trapped, caught in a web of emotions he hadn't anticipated. He couldn't just leave her alone. He worried about what might happen to her. She might end up single for the rest of her life, and once he identified that vulnerability in someone, he found it hard to detach. It was his greatest flaw, one he knew all too well. Just then, a colleague called out to him, asking if the rumors were true. Someone should report this to the boss, he suggested. It would be better if you did it. There was a lot happening at the office, and workplace romances were always a problem. But for the boss, the truth didn't matter. All he cared about was productivity. He wanted to know the name of the colleague involved, and as he walked outside, he overheard some chatter. Suzuki, the crying woman, has been fired. The abruptness of her dismissal surprised him. Something must have happened. She wouldn't have been let go so suddenly otherwise. Despite her dramatic tendencies, he knew she had a history of workplace affairs and had become more of a nuisance than anything else. The president's decision to fire her seemed justified, especially since he had been falsely accused. Still, he couldn't help but wonder if it was the right punishment. At least he was relieved to know the president was on his side, But that support came with a caveat. His boss only cared about the work he produced. As he pondered this, a small voice broke through his thoughts. The little girl called out to him, concern etched on her face. "Are you okay? You look a bit down. Did something happen?" In that moment, he realized she was the only one who genuinely cared about him. But before he could respond, he noticed a bruise on her arm. "What happened?" he asked, alarmed. "It's my fault," she said, her voice small. "I was a bad child." His heart sank. "How did you get that bruise?" She hesitated before revealing, "It was when my father got really angry and hit me with a shoe." He felt a surge of disbelief. Why would he do that? "It was because of my test score," she explained, her eyes downcast. "I got a 0, which is unusual for me. I handed in a blank paper on purpose because he never praises me. I just wanted his attention." As a result of her father's anger, she found herself facing punishment once again. After that day, her wounds began to multiply. Concerned, he asked if she had been hit again, and she nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I handed in a blank sheet again," she admitted, her eyes downcast, "and during dinner I had an accident." Now she believed her father simply hated her. The young man, feeling a surge of empathy, replied, "I don't like my father either." Her response surprised him. "I wish you could be my real dad," she said, her words striking a deep chord within him. This situation couldn't continue. He decided to confront the director, insisting that the abuse had to stop. "You need to make him stop hurting that child," he urged. But the director dismissed his concerns, claiming the bruises were from her playing alone, and that she sometimes acted like a boy. Losing patience, the young man was told to return to work. Despite the dismissal, he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to do something. The president's indifference only fueled his frustration. They were business partners, not friends, and mixing personal matters with work was frowned upon. He felt powerless, unsure of how to help her. Then, everything changed when the president was hospitalized due to cancer. Despite the gravity of the situation, the little girl remained by his side, the only one visiting him during his many hospitalizations. As the years passed, his condition worsened significantly, and he eventually passed away, leaving her alone at his funeral. On that lonely day, while they stood together, she turned to him and asked, "Would you like to be my father?" That simple question changed everything. In that moment, he realized that the little girl before him was the one he had failed to protect. She needed him to keep her safe, and he finally made a decision. He would do everything in his power to help her. From that day forward, he became her new father. The girl was overjoyed, hoping they could grow closer. "You have to protect me," she said, her eyes shining with trust. Suddenly, Kiba jolted awake inside the car, dangling precariously on the edge of a cliff. The vehicle was about to fall, and they needed to escape quickly. He shook the man beside him, asking if he was okay. The man mumbled a few incoherent words, and Kiba felt a wave of relief wash over him. He was still alive. "Can you move?" Kiba asked urgently. The man nodded, puzzled. "Are you trying to help me?" "Yes," Kiba replied, determination in his voice. Tears welled in the man's eyes, and Kiba's heart ached at the sight. This man, despite his flaws, was capable of feeling deeply for others. "Please take care of my daughter," he said, his voice trembling. "Of course," Kiba assured him, though the thought of living under the same roof still felt overwhelming. "Thank you for understanding," the man said, his gratitude evident. "Now we need to get back to her." After resolving the chaos of their injuries, they finally returned to the girl. She looked up at them, her brow furrowed. "You took a long time. What were you doing? And why do you both look like you've been beaten up?" The man hesitated, wanting to discuss their living arrangements, but Kumaru interrupted. "It's fine. Are you really going to say I can't live with you? I don't like it when you disagree with me." Her defiance terrified him. "It's fine," he said, trying to placate her. "You have my full approval." Kiba, still unsure, asked, "Is it really okay?" The man sighed. "It's not, but she means everything to me. I'm afraid to say no to her." As he approached Kiba, he began to plead. "Please, don't make any mistakes that you can't undo. Do we understand each other?" It seemed that his chaotic life was only just beginning, given how close they had all become. The man urged Ka to keep her distance as he gazed out the window. Below, a girl sat lamenting her actions, feeling the weight of her choices. "I did it again," she whispered to herself, despairing. No matter what she did, things always ended up this way. The only relief she felt came when she took a life. People were so quick to hide their flaws, and it was all too easy to bend a body once it was dead. Suddenly, they would say they couldn't look at her anymore and vanish from her life. No one loves me, she thought, feeling like a ghost among the living. That man was just like all the others, sitting on the ground, indifferent to her pain. I wish I were dead, she murmured, her heart heavy with sorrow. A boy approached her cautiously, concern etched on his face. Are you okay? He asked gently. She looked up, surprised by his kindness. Do you want something to drink? He offered, and she nodded, grateful for the distraction. As they sat together, he asked her name. Sashigoa, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. And you? I'm just a boy, he said with a small smile. I thought you looked lost. He shared that he used to live in constant anxiety, wishing every day that he wouldn't wake up alive. But then he found something that helped him escape that darkness. What was it? She asked, intrigued. It's simple, he replied. I started believing in God. That was all I needed, a belief. Sashi frowned, skepticism creeping in. It's impossible to believe in something that doesn't exist, she said, shaking her head. Maybe, he conceded, but you should believe so you can be saved, just like I was. His words struck a chord within her. Can you be my God? She asked suddenly, her eyes searching his. It doesn't matter if God is real or not. I just need someone to save me. And maybe you're that person. Taken aback, he stammered, I need to go to the bathroom. He stood up quickly, leaving her alone. Time passed, and he didn't return. When the waitress approached, she informed Sashi that they were closing. Frustrated, she asked for the bill and left, anger boiling inside her. He was just a liar, she thought bitterly. He approached me, claiming he wanted to save me, and then he vanished. People always seemed honest right before they left, revealing their true selves. And when she killed them, they belonged to her for that brief moment, becoming the most intense memories in her consciousness. That's why she couldn't stop what she was doing, even as she hoped for salvation. Exhausted, she realized it was morning. The first bus of the day was about to arrive. She needed to go home and sleep. On her way, she bumped into a boy, his body covered in bandages. She hadn't been paying attention, and her heart sank at the sight. Are you okay? She asked, holding his face gently in her hands. She stared at him, concern etched on her features. I'm worried the bump might have reopened some of your wounds. I'm fine, he replied, a hint of discomfort in his voice. Relief washed over her. Just be more careful next time, she said, stepping back. As she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had startled him. He seemed frightened, and she wondered if her touch had disgusted him. Could it be? She thought, overthinking every detail. She couldn't handle the uncertainty. She needed to clear things up immediately. Later, the school bell rang, signaling the end of classes. She approached Kiba, eager to know if he would be free afterward. There's a sale nearby, and since Rio and I are heading somewhere else, I was hoping you could go for me, she said, her eyes bright with anticipation. Kiba agreed, trying to recall the school uniform she had worn. After he agreed to help, Toma beamed with gratitude, leaning in to give him a quick kiss. The gesture left him flustered. We'll see each other soon, she promised, her smile lingering in his mind. But as he hurried away, he felt a sense of urgency. The discount was only available until 6, and it was already past 5. Just as he picked up his pace, a hand grabbed him by the shirt. It was the woman he had bumped into earlier. What do you think of me? He finally recognized her after looking closely at her face. Behind them, Tamada had found them and stepped forward, her expression firm. Step away from Kiba, she commanded the woman, her tone leaving no room for argument. Intrigued, the woman raised an eyebrow. Are you talking to me? She asked, feigning innocence. I didn't mean to scare anyone. I just wanted to have a brief conversation with him. Tamada's protective nature sparked curiosity in the woman. Unfortunately, the boy belongs to me, Tamada replied, her voice steady. So, you should take your hands off him. With that, they began to leave, but the woman's indifference stung. She spoke as if Kiba's well-being didn't matter at all. This made her think harder about the situation. What expression would Tamada wear if she were at death's door? But she couldn't act on those thoughts. She had to restrain herself. Kiba hadn't been able to buy the eggs, but Tamada reassured him. It's fine. At least we managed to get ice cream. The vibrant colors of the ice cream caught his eye, and he noticed how much Tamada loved the bright pink flavor that tasted like mint chocolate. From its appearance, he would never have guessed that was the flavor she adored. She offered him a taste, but he declined, shaking his head. "I don't like chocolate." Tamada smiled knowingly. "I won't forget that," she said, continuing to enjoy her treat. But as she ate, some of the ice cream dripped onto her clothes, causing her to frown. Determined to finish quickly, she hurried to eat the rest so she could wash her blouse. Meanwhile, Kiba and Rio were reminded to behave themselves. They agreed to wait for Tamada's return, and she thanked them before heading to the restroom to wash her hands. Fortunately, there were no stains left on her blouse, and it was time to head back. But as she exited, the tall woman was waiting for her. In an instant, she gagged Tamada, whispering, "Stay quiet from now on. If you make a scene, I'll kill you." Outside, Kiba and Rio noticed she was taking longer than expected. Concerned, Kiba asked Rio to check the restroom. "I'll go with you," she agreed, and they hurried to investigate. Upon reaching the restroom, they found it empty. "Tamada's gone," Rio said, panic rising in her voice. "I couldn't find her anywhere." But she had discovered something on the floor, a scarf that Tamada usually wore. Worry crept into Kiba's heart. "What if she's been kidnapped?" he said, his voice trembling. Suddenly, Rio collapsed to the ground, and Kiba rushed to her side, trying to wake her. But he was met with a forceful headbutt. When she opened her eyes, it was clear that a different personality had awakened within her. "Rina?" Kiba asked, startled. Irritated, she replied, "We need to search for Tamada immediately." She quickly asked if there was a tracker on Tamada's phone. Kiba remembered that he had registered her headphones and phone for tracking purposes. Using his own phone, he located her device. "She's in a small enclosed space," he said, anxiety flooding his voice. "She's being held hostage." Meanwhile, Tamada was in a dark room, her eyes blindfolded. The woman holding her had a mocking expression. "Let me go home quickly," Tamada demanded, trying to maintain her composure. As the blindfold was removed, she studied the woman's face, trying to gauge her intentions. "What's wrong with this girl?" the woman wondered, unable to figure out what Tamada was hiding. "Are you afraid of anything?" she asked, her tone challenging. Tamada shrugged, her curiosity piqued. "I don't know what I should be afraid of in this situation. If it's about dying, I'm not scared at all. In fact, I'm very curious about it." "What do you mean?" the woman pressed, intrigued. "I want to know what happens after death," Tamada explained, her voice steady. "Maybe it's just emptiness. Or perhaps there really is another life, only the dead find out. To me, death is just a part of life, which is why I don't fear it." She paused, a glimmer of mischief in her eyes. "And there's something I like even more, saving the best for last. Since I know I won't die here, I have a proposal for you." With a newfound confidence, she continued, "I want control over your life." As they approached the location where they believed Tamada was being held, an unsettling sound echoed through the hallway. Kiba turned to the girl beside him, urgency in his voice. "Find a place to hide. If something happens, I'll shout. If you hear me, call the police." Worry creased her brow as she nodded, her mind racing with thoughts of his safety. What if the kidnapper was a bigger man or armed? She felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach as she scurried to find a hiding spot. Kiba pressed on, determination fueling his steps. He couldn't afford to lose focus now. Tamada had saved him before, and it was his turn to repay the favor. But as he ran, he soon found himself at a dead end. "No time to panic," he reminded himself. "I have to save her." Meanwhile, inside the apartment, the woman had punched the wall in frustration, her hand throbbing from the impact. "Don't talk about things you don't understand," she snapped at Tamada, her voice laced with anger. "You can't do anything for me." But Tamada, undeterred, replied confidently, "No one knows for sure, but I might at least understand what's going on in your mind." The woman's eyes widened, her unease growing. Being understood was something she had always sought, and Tamada's words struck a nerve. "You've suffered a lot in your life," Tamada continued, her tone softening. "No one understands you, and no one loves you. Everyone approaches you with their own interests and then abandons you. Those people are all irresponsible." Tamada's empathy resonated with the woman. "I understand you because I've been through a similar situation. When no one loves me, I make people love me. And when God doesn't exist, you have to create one. That's why I'm willing to become your God. If you wish to follow me," Tamada said, "you should start by untying those ropes. If you decide to free me with your own hands, I promise to save you from despair. But if you don't, you can move forward and finish me off. Just know that salvation will never come to you if you choose that path." Outside, Kiba struggled to break down the door. When he finally burst in, he was stunned to see the strange woman from earlier kneeling and kissing Tamada's hand. "I always believed in you," the woman said, looking up at Kiba with a mix of reverence and desperation. "I knew you would come to her aid." "What's happening here?" Kiba demanded, confusion swirling in his mind. Tamada calmly explained, "The woman untied my ropes." Kiba's brow furrowed. "Who kidnapped you?" "The same person who set me free," she replied, her voice steady. The woman interjected, "I gave up on killing her because now I see her as my god." Kiba was left completely baffled. "What do you mean?" "It's time for the first divine revelation," Tamada said, her tone serious. "You should no longer kill people unless ordered to do so. Can you bear that burden?" The woman hesitated before responding, "I probably can." Realizing they hadn't introduced themselves yet, Tamada smiled and said, "I'm Tamada. What's your name?" After a moment of hesitation, the woman replied, "Sakoa Hiro." "Pleasure to meet you," Tamada said, her smile brightening the room. Kiba watched, feeling a strange mix of innocence and cruelty in her expression. Outside, the other girl tried to enter, frustration bubbling within her. "Can someone please explain what's going on?" she pleaded. Back in the apartment, Tamada turned to Kiba, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Look at me! I'm wearing my summer uniform again. It's that time of year." Kiba chuckled, relieved to see her in good spirits. "It must be a relief for you to have your arm free," he said, glancing at her unbound wrists. "What happened after Sakoa?" he asked, curiosity piqued. Tamada shrugged. "She contacts me from time to time." Kiba frowned, sensing something was off. "Is that really all? You just left her alone?" Tamada nodded, her expression serious. "I couldn't understand why she was alone either, but for me, the answer is simple. Salvation is built through pain. She needs to suffer much more. Otherwise, I can't become the benevolent goddess I'm meant to be." Tamada watched the exchange with a mix of amusement and concern. Kiba was clearly agitated, and she could sense that the girl was toying with him. "You're going too far," he warned, his voice tense. Just then, someone approached them. It was the jerk from earlier, the one who had bullied Kiba in the past. "Do you have a minute to talk?" he asked, a smirk on his face. Tamada interjected, "He doesn't need to go. It's probably just a waste of time anyway." The jerk shrugged, unfazed. "Doesn't matter if it's a waste of time. I have something to discuss with Kiba." With that, they left the room, Tamada's menacing glare following them as they walked down the hall. Once they reached the rooftop, Kiba hesitated. "I'd rather not talk to you," he said, trying to keep his distance. The jerk stepped closer, his annoyance evident. "You still annoy me a lot," he said, his tone mocking. "Was it you who posted that video online? Smart move. Was it the transfer student's idea?" Kiba's patience was wearing thin. "What do you want?" he demanded, wanting to get straight to the point. Unexpectedly, the jerk said he had come to apologize, something Kiba hadn't anticipated. The anger bubbled up inside him, and before he could think, he punched the jerk square in the face. "What the hell?" Kiba exclaimed, surprised by his own reaction. He was furious. The jerk shouldn't be apologizing as if he hadn't done anything wrong. The jerk, rubbing his jaw, looked confused. "I'm just trying to be friends," he said, his tone almost sincere. "Friends?" Kiba shouted, incredulous. "Have you forgotten what you put me through?" The jerk shrugged, seemingly unfazed. "That's why I'm apologizing. I know it won't fix things, but I thought it was worth a shot." Kiba's anger flared again, and he punched him once more. "How many times are you going to keep talking?" The jerk winced, clearly irritated. "I can't believe this is happening. It's unfair that I'm trying to make amends, and you just keep hitting me." Kiba felt a mix of frustration and confusion. "I wish you would just stay a jerk," he muttered. "If you change, then there's no one left to hate." The jerk laughed, shaking his head. "You're a real weirdo, you know that? I come to apologize, and if you don't want to forgive me, that's fine. You can keep hating me." Kiba's brow furrowed. "Are you really suggesting that I should just let you off the hook? You think I'm against the idea of you lifting this weight off your shoulders?" "Exactly," the jerk replied, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "So how about we settle this with a fight? If I win, you accept my apology. If you win, you can do whatever you want with me." Kiba scoffed. "It's easy for you to say that. You can fight on equal footing with others, but I can't." In a moment of desperation, Kiba kicked him between the legs, fighting dirty because he didn't care. He was terrified of the jerk, but he kept throwing punches until the jerk managed to grab both of his hands, stopping him. "Dude, I've been getting punched since I started talking, and it hurts a lot," the jerk exclaimed, his voice strained. "You're the one making this unequal. You always look down on me, even though I just wanted to talk." Kiba now realized that there was a confused heart standing in front of him. The jerk didn't like being ignored, and it was clear he was ready to retaliate. But before fists could fly, Tamada appeared, stepping between them. "Letting fists do the talking is a wonderful idea at the epitome of youth," she said, her voice light, but there was a seriousness in her eyes. "But it's not everything. Something is still missing." She approached the jerk, a playful smile on her face. "What's missing is a generous dose of love." The jerk looked bewildered, unsure of what she was suggesting. As she turned to leave, she waved goodbye to Kiba. "You'd better run away, Kiba. Once I return, we'll settle things." Kiba could only watch in shock as the two walked away, his mind racing with confusion. After that, class resumed as usual, but neither Tamada nor the jerk returned. Kiba's irritation grew. Ara approached him, concern etched on her face. "Do you know where Tamada is?" "She left with the jerk," Kiba replied, recalling her earlier words about creating love. A wave of unsettling thoughts washed over him. It couldn't be what he was imagining. If it were, he wouldn't be able to bear it. Just then, his phone buzzed with a notification. He checked it and saw that Tamada had returned home early. "I have to go," he told Ara, rushing out the door to find Tamada. When he entered their home, he was greeted by her cheerful presence. "The jerk has something to say," he blurted out, not expecting anything good to come from it. Tamada raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What does he want?" Kiba approached, feeling a mix of dread and curiosity. The jerk stepped forward, looking serious. "I need to confess something," he said, his tone earnest. "Don't come any closer," Kiba warned, his heart racing. But the jerk continued, "I love you." Kiba was taken aback, his mind racing to process the confession. "What?" he stammered, unsure how to respond. Tamada leaned in, whispering a few things to him. "In a way, I kind of brainwashed him," she revealed, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I know you don't want to be bullied again, so I made the jerk fall in love with you. It worked out even better than I expected." Kiba's mind reeled. "That's insane," he exclaimed, glancing at the jerk, who looked hopeful. "What are you two talking about?" the jerk asked, clearly confused. "Shut up," Kiba snapped, holding his head in his hands. The jerk, undeterred, said, "I'll do my best to make you like me." Kiba felt the situation spiraling out of control in a way he hadn't anticipated. Just then, Tamada approached him again, her expression serious. "I have something to share," she said. "I'd like to have a girls' night this evening." She paused, gauging his reaction. "I'm sorry for the short notice, but you can stay at the jerk's house in the meantime." Kiba's heart sank. Of all the possible outcomes, this one was easily among the worst. "I don't know, guys. What should I say about this manga? I leave it up to you guys. So comment down below, what kind of manga is this?"
She casually suggests that he can stay over at Ryoya's place and even fix things while he's there, saying it like it's no big deal. But the moment it lands, he snaps in disbelief, completely thrown off by how sudden and unreasonable it sounds. Before he can push back, the scene shifts, and the girls are already gathered together, relaxed and chatting, the mood quickly settling into something lively as they declare it's a girls' night, specifically a pajama party. One of them stretches her arms out, excitedly, while the others sit nearby. And as things calm down, they decide to start with introductions, urging Riho to go first. She hesitates, clearly shy, softly introducing herself as Ihara Riho, her nervousness obvious, which leads to the comment that this is their first proper conversation. Hiro follows with a calm introduction of her own, and Riho immediately reacts with bright admiration, unable to hide how happy she is to meet her. With that out of the way, snacks are brought out, and the atmosphere stays casual until the conversation suddenly shifts. The topic of love is brought up, catching Hiro off guard as she questions it, while the others push forward, asking why they're even having a girls' night in the first place. The answer is simple. She wants to know more about them, directly calling out Kubaru-chan, making it clear this isn't just random chatter. The scene cuts away to the boys, where the tone is completely different. Sitting outside, he lets out a tired sigh, wondering how things even ended up like this. With only one bed available, it's quickly decided he'll sleep on the floor, convincing himself that's the only thing he should be touching. The other reassures him he won't try anything, but the awkwardness doesn't really go away. They settle for cup noodles, keeping things simple, and he thanks him for letting him stay over, only getting a short response in return. As things quiet down, he reflects on the situation, thinking about how Tamada is off enjoying her girls' night while he's stuck here. Admitting to himself that being around Ryoya feels awkward since they're not really friends. The moment shifts when the food is ready, and while they eat, the topic of a summer festival comes up. An invitation is casually suggested, but it's immediately shut down. Still, the idea sticks with him, repeating in his mind, a summer festival. And as he sits there, slightly flustered, he quietly starts to think that maybe he could try inviting Tamada-san. He stares at his phone, heart pounding, and before he can stop himself, he sends the message, asking Tamada if she'd like to go to the festival this Saturday, freezing the moment it's sent, as panic hits, and he blurts out that he actually did it. Almost instantly, a reply comes back. She says she'd love to. And he just stares at the screen in disbelief, before quietly admitting to himself that it makes him really happy. But then doubt creeps in, wondering if it'll really just be the two of them. And after hesitating he types again, saying he'd like it to be just the two of them. His fingers tapping nervously until she agrees, and that's when he finally bursts, throwing his arms up as he celebrates that he actually did it. And he sits there, tense, repeating to himself that this is really happening, knowing Tamada is just on the other side of the door getting changed. His nerves only getting worse as he admits how anxious he feels. Then the door opens, and she steps out in a yukata, smiling as she apologizes for the wait, and asks how she looks. And he freezes, flustered, before blurting out that she looks really cute, quickly correcting himself to say the yukata suits her, which makes her laugh as she thanks him and grabs his hand, telling him they should go. They arrive at the festival, surrounded by a crowd, and she smiles brightly talking about how exciting summer festivals are, while he walks beside her, still a little stiff. She mentions there will be fireworks later, then immediately says they should get something to eat first, deciding on roasted squid as she pulls him along. As they move through the crowd, their hands brush for a moment before slipping apart, and as he looks at her, he quietly thinks he knew this would happen. Then the crowd suddenly separates them, and as he turns trying to find her, her hand reaches back and grabs his. She looks at him and casually says it's crowded, so he should hold her hand. And as they walk together through the festival, surrounded by lights and noise, something inside him finally reaches its limit, his chest tightening as the words build up until he can't hold them back anymore. And suddenly he blurts it out, loud and unfiltered. He tells her he loves her. She stops. For a moment, she just looks at him, her expression unreadable. And he keeps going, stumbling through his feelings, saying that not just now, but in future dates, at festivals, in anything that comes next he only wants to be with her, that he can't fall in love with anyone else, that he loves her, so much it hurts. There's a pause, heavy and quiet despite the noise around them, and then she answers softly. She's sorry. She tells him she's empty, that there's nothing inside her to give, that she doesn't understand her own feelings, that she can't form connections with people, and simply says she doesn't know how to love. He listens, shaken, but doesn't step back. Instead he answers immediately, telling her he's fine with that he still loves her just the way she is. She looks at him for a moment, then quietly accepts it, and as she steps closer, her voice calm but distant, she tells him that if this is what makes him happy, then he can love her as much as he wants. The words hang there, unclear and heavy, leaving him confused as he tries to understand what she really means. Before he can ask, the fireworks suddenly start, lighting up the sky as she looks up in surprise, realizing she got the timing wrong, quickly grabbing his hand and saying they need to hurry. She leads him through the crowd, saying she knows a spot with a good view, but as they rush, her sandal suddenly snaps, making her stumble. He immediately stops, asking if she's okay, and she brushes it off at first, but admits she can't walk properly now, quietly adding that she wanted to see the fireworks up close. Without hesitating, he tells her not to worry, then lifts her into his arms, carrying her despite his flustered expression. She looks at him slightly amused, teasing him for acting like something out of a shoujo manga. But when he starts to apologize, she tells him it's fine, even asking if he doesn't want to carry her, and he quickly insists that he does. As he carries her down a quieter path, she rests lightly against him, casually remarking that he can be surprisingly manly, which only makes him more flustered as he tells her to stop teasing. They finally reach a quiet spot, and he sets her down, catching his breath while she thanks him. And as the fireworks continue, they stand side by side, watching the sky fill with light. She softly says, "They're beautiful," then adds that she hopes they can see them again next year. And he quickly agrees, though his voice falters slightly. In that moment, as he looks at her, he wishes time would stop, thinking that he wants to stay by her side for the rest of his life, even knowing deep down that things might not go the way he hopes. He still tells himself that from now on, he wants to live peacefully with her, even if it means forcing that future, even if it means holding on to her just a little longer. Later, back at home, a knock suddenly breaks the quiet. He opens the door to find Mikoto standing there, greeting him politely, and he immediately regrets answering, as the person explains they've been going around knocking on doors lately, asking if he's been happy. The question catches him off guard, and before he can respond, they continue, saying that if he isn't happy, then Kubaru-sama is here to guide him, inviting him to come and be happy with them, speaking with quiet certainty as he stares at her, confused, trying to process what she's saying. She calls Kubaru-sama their god, and the word alone throws him off, making him hesitate, unsure how to respond, when suddenly Tomata appears behind him, casually calling out to her. The moment she says her name, Mikoto, the woman reacts instantly, her composure breaking as she trembles, overwhelmed just from being acknowledged. While Tomata greets her normally, completely unfazed, he looks between them, confused, questioning who she even is. And Tomata simply explains that Mikoto once asked her for permission to start a fan club, saying it like it's nothing, which only leaves him more stunned. Mikoto, meanwhile, clasps her hands tightly, speaking with emotional intensity as she explains that ever since Kubaru-sama saved her, she made a decision that Kubaru-sama would be her one and only. Her voice shaking with devotion as she calls herself a follower, she continues, proudly declaring that she's in the process of spreading Kubaru-sama's name. And then suddenly bursts out, calling herself a stan, arms wide as if presenting her devotion, while he stands there completely overwhelmed, unable to keep up with any of it. Tomata just smiles lightly beside him, amused by the situation, while he admits he can't follow what's going on at all. Then Mikoto suddenly shifts the conversation, asking about their relationship, and after a brief hesitation, he awkwardly says they're friends for now. She immediately reacts with excitement, calling it a fateful encounter, before clasping her hands again and saying she has an idea. Without waiting, she invites them both to her castle, and before they can question it, the next moment they're standing in front of a large building, completely out of place, leaving him frozen in confusion as he tries to understand what's happening. The atmosphere turns unsettling. He looks around confused, asking what's going on, when his eyes land on something that makes him stop cold, several bodies laid out in front of them. The realization hits him instantly, his voice shaking as he asks if those are dead bodies. Mikoto stands there peacefully, hands clasped together again, her expression calm, as she gently asks them to please offer salvation, while he stares at the wrapped bodies in horror. Unable to understand what he's looking at, he immediately questions what she means by salvation, but before he can stop anything, Tomata casually agrees to help, making him panic as he quickly objects, only for her to look at him and quietly ask, why not? Then she asks him something simple, doesn't he feel sorry for them? The room falls quiet for a moment, before Mikoto happily announces they can begin the salvation ritual. She hands Tomata a pair of scissors, and asks Kubaru-sama to cut the cocoons open, while he nervously asks if there are actually people inside them. Mikoto smiles and confirms it without hesitation. She explains that the people inside are still alive, breathing human beings, who've remained inside the cocoons for an entire month, waiting for Kubaru-sama to save them. The explanation only horrifies him more, as he struggles to understand how anyone could survive like that, but Mikoto simply calls it mysterious, speaking as if it's something beautiful. She continues, saying their hope that Kubaru-sama would save them is what kept them alive this whole time. Then she asks Tomata once again to cut them open. Tomata stands there silently with the scissors in hand, her expression unreadable, as the room suddenly goes still. Then, in one sharp motion, she cuts the cocoon open. A burst of movement follows immediately. The people inside slowly emerge, weak and dazed, falling to their knees as they look toward Tomata with tearful eyes, calling her God and begging her to guide them. More and more of them gather around her, desperate and emotional, while Mikoto calmly tells them not to overwhelm Kubaru-sama with requests. Watching all of it unfold, he can barely process what he's seeing. Mikoto explains that these people want Tomata to take over their lives completely, to guide them and make every decision for them. Then, she asks Tomata to offer them her guidance, as if this entire thing is perfectly normal. That's when he finally snaps. He looks around at all of them in disbelief and blurts out that they're all completely messed up in the head. Grabbing Tomata's hand, he immediately tries to leave, pulling her toward the exit, but when he reaches the door, it won't open. The handle rattles uselessly in his hands as panic starts setting in, and from behind them, Mikoto calmly tells them to come back. Then, with an eerie smile, she stretches her hands out toward them, while the others begin closing in, quietly declaring that they're not letting them escape. The door refuses to open no matter how hard he pulls on it, panic rising fast as Mikoto and the others close in behind them, calmly insisting they aren't going to let them escape. Without wasting another second, he grabs Tomata's hand and runs, dragging her through the halls while desperately searching for another way out. He spots the stairs and immediately decides their only option is to go up before the others catch them, the sound of footsteps echoing behind them as they rush higher into the building. Eventually, they force themselves into a room and barricade the door, both breathing hard as silence finally settles for a moment. He asks what they should do now, completely shaken, and after thinking for a second, he mutters that maybe they should just open the door and talk things out. But Tomata immediately stops him. Then, quietly he admits what's really scaring him. He tells her that if they open the door, she'll forget about him someday. Tomata looks at him calmly and tells him she won't. She softly says that he's her first puppet, and because of that, he'll always be special to her. The words only make him break down further. He grabs onto her shoulders, trembling as he asks if he's really special to her, then begs her not to get any more puppets after him. Tears start running down his face as he desperately asks her to make him happy, and pleads with her not to become someone else's god. Tomata quietly calls his name, watching him carefully. Then she asks him a simple question. Does he need her? Without hesitation, he shouts that of course he does, admitting that she's everything he has. Outside the room, Mikoto pounds on the door while calmly insisting there are plenty of gods out there, and that Tomata doesn't need to become one too. But he refuses to listen anymore. Looking directly at Tomata, he reaches for her hand and begs her to run away with him instead. And just as the moment hangs there between them, the sound of wood splitting suddenly echoes through the room. The door cracks open, and Mikoto appears holding an axe, staring at them with a shaken expression as she declares that she won't hand Kubaru-sama over to anyone, her devotion twisting into desperation as she steps toward them. He quickly shields Tomata behind him, while trying to calm Mikoto down, but she refuses to listen, insisting that even if he's Tomata's friend, she still won't let him take Kubaru-sama away from them. That's when he finally shouts back at her. He tells her that Tomata doesn't belong to anyone. Mikoto argues that when Tomata saved her, she believed she was a god, but he cuts her off and firmly says she isn't one. She's not a god at all. She's just a girl. He keeps going, his voice shaking but honest as he talks about her. Yes, she's eccentric, and yes, the things she does can get ridiculous, but her smile is charming, and because she always throws herself into danger, he wants to stay by her side and protect her. In the end, she isn't some divine being to worship. She's simply the girl he fell in love with. Tomata's expression shifts slightly as she quietly watches him. Then he grabs her hand again and tells her they're leaving, but Mikoto immediately stops them, reminding them that they're at the top of the tower and there's nowhere to run. Realizing she's right, he slowly looks toward the open edge nearby, while Mikoto stares at him in disbelief, asking if he's seriously planning to jump. He answers calmly that he is. Then, looking directly at Mikoto, he tells her that today, he's going to kill her god. The room falls silent. Tomata looks at him quietly, while the followers stand frozen behind Mikoto. Holding Tomata tightly, he tells her that if they both survive this, then, before he can even finish the sentence, he leaps with her from the tower. The next moment he's lying on the ground in pain, still holding onto her hand, as tears stream down his face. Looking up at Tomata desperately, he pleads with her one final time. Please, go out with me, his voice cracking as he clings to her hand. For a moment she just looks at him quietly, and then slowly, a small smile appears on her face, as she squeezes his hand back. The tension finally breaks, as they both realize they survived the fall. And while lying together in the bushes, she casually asks if that means they're a couple now. He immediately panics, flustered by how suddenly she says it, asking if she's really sure. but she laughs at him and asks if he's already getting second thoughts. Through tears and embarrassment, he blurts out that of course not, that he really does want them to be a couple. Tomata smiles softly and tells him to take care of her from now on. Before he can properly react, she leans in and kisses him, leaving him completely frozen while his face turns bright red. Back up at the tower, Mikoto watches everything in silence. The others nervously call out to her, but she simply stares downward for a moment, before quietly declaring that their god is dead. Then, with a strangely peaceful smile, she tells the others that they're free now, no longer bound, inviting them to come with her and live freely from now on. Sometime later, the scene shifts back to normal life in the city. People walk through the streets casually, conversations filling the background, until suddenly someone stops and looks up in confusion. Others follow, their expressions slowly changing as something massive passes overhead. A giant cocoon-like shape crashes down from above, slamming into the street with a horrifying impact, as people scream and stumble backward in panic. And before anyone can even process what just happened, another one falls from the sky. As fear spreads through the street, someone stares upward in horror, while the realization hits all at once. There are still more. Back at home, the reality of everything still hasn't fully settled in. Sitting beside Tomata on the couch, he can barely believe that they're actually dating now, his heart pounding every time he looks at her, while she rests comfortably against him like it's the most natural thing in the world. For him, it almost feels unreal, like he's dreaming, until the television suddenly cuts through the quiet, with a breaking news report about multiple people falling from a building earlier that day. Both of them look up at the screen as the victims begin being identified one by one. Mikoto's name appears among them, along with the others who had been inside the tower, and the moment the realization fully hits him, his phone slips from his hand and crashes to the floor. He sits there frozen, unable to process it properly, but beside him, Tomata simply says it looks like Mikoto died. The calmness in her voice shocks him. Then she quietly explains why. She tells him that she chose him, Yuto. The words leave him speechless for a moment, before she suddenly shifts the mood completely, asking him to go on a date with her tomorrow. She smiles brightly as she talks about all the things couples should do together now that they're dating. Eating pancakes, buying matching accessories, going out together, speaking with excitement, while he struggles more and more to keep up with the disconnect between her cheerful attitude and what just happened. Finally, he snaps. He asks how she can act so calm after people just died. Tomata looks at him quietly and simply asks what she's supposed to do instead. Then, with complete honesty, she admits she doesn't know the right way to react. Whether she cries or gets angry, it won't change the truth that Mikoto is dead. Then she says something that hits even harder. Tomata asks him again if this isn't what he wanted, smiling softly while he stands there shaken, unable to accept her words. He immediately denies it, insisting he never wanted Mikoto to die. But Tomata calmly points out the contradiction. She reminds him that he wanted her to choose him over Mikoto, and because of that, this was the result. Then she suddenly brings up something he once said. She asks if he remembers calling a dead crow nothing more than a lump of trash. Confused, he admits he might have said that before, so she asks why he thought that way. Her answer is simple and cold, because it couldn't move anymore, and that made it boring. The realization slowly starts sinking into him. Hesitantly, he asks if she feels that same way about people too, and after a short pause, she quietly admits that she does. As he thinks back on everything, he finally begins understanding the truth. To the people who became obsessed with her, Tomata was irreplaceable, something special beyond comparison. But to Tomata himself, anyone could take that place. Even he could easily become just another toy in her collection someday. And if someone more interesting appeared, she would simply throw him away without hesitation. The thought terrifies him. He imagines himself discarded and forgotten, replaced, the moment someone more fascinating enters her life, and the fear becomes unbearable. He immediately pulls her into his arms, tightly holding on to her, while desperately insisting that he doesn't want that. Tomata looks up at him quietly, slightly surprised by the sudden embrace. Then, in a soft voice, she tells him she loves him. The words should have made him happy, but instead, they only deepen the storm inside him. As he holds her close, his thoughts begin twisting together with desperation and fear. He doesn't want to lose her. He doesn't want to be abandoned or replaced. He wants her entirely to himself, forever. And as tears fall from his eyes while he clutches her tighter, a final thought quietly settles into his mind. If he wants that future, then he'll have to take control of her. As he holds Tomata in his arms, the thought keeps repeating in his head that if he doesn't take control of her, someday, she'll abandon him, and that fear quietly settles into his heart as the only answer he can cling to. Still holding her close, he suddenly suggests they go on a date tomorrow. Tomata looks up at him curiously, and he gently proposes going to the beach, since the weather's been getting hotter lately. Adding one important detail: it'll be just the two of them. The next day they arrive at the beach together. Since it isn't beach season yet, the shore is almost completely empty, and Tomata happily stretches her arms out, saying it feels like the entire beach belongs to them alone. Smiling brightly, she jokes that it's almost like they're the only two people left in the world. He quietly watches her, while those words linger in his mind. Tomata excitedly suggests dipping their feet into the water, immediately slipping off her shoes and stepping into the ocean without hesitation, while laughing about how cold it is. As he watches her, his thoughts grow heavier again. If he really wants to keep her by his side forever, then he needs to understand her better. So he calls out to her honestly. He says he wants them to go on lots of dates from now on, because he wants to know everything about her, what food she likes, what quirks she has, every little thing there is to know. Tomata stares at him for a moment before softly laughing and agreeing, telling him she'll tell him everything about herself. But before the moment can settle, dark clouds suddenly roll in overhead, and heavy rain immediately begins pouring down on them. Tomata laughs as the storm drenches them both, while he panics, telling her this isn't the time to be laughing and quickly leading her toward a nearby hut for shelter. Inside, rain pounds loudly against the roof, while both of them stand there soaked. Tomata squeezes water from her clothes and casually remarks that the forecast never mentioned rain. Then she quietly says his name. Before he can answer properly, she suddenly wraps her arms around him. Resting against his chest, she softly tells him he's warm, while his entire body stiffens in shock, his heart beating uncontrollably fast. Tomata notices immediately, teasing him by saying his heartbeat sounds like a drum and asking if he's excited about something, leaving him completely flustered. The next instant, his footing slips on the wet floor. He crashes forward together with her, and before he can recover, he finds himself directly on top of Tomata, both of them frozen as rain continues roaring outside. Tomata quietly looks up at him and gently places her hands against his face. Then, with a soft smile, she asks him to promise her something. She asks him to promise that he won't be sad anymore. And reaching both hands toward him, she smiles brightly and tells him that from now on, they should just be happy together. Even after everything that happened at the beach, a gloomy anxiety still lingers inside him, quietly sitting in his chest as he walks through the school halls the next day. The moment he arrives, though, the atmosphere immediately explodes into chaos when his classmates realize the two of them are dating. One of them practically shouts in disbelief, while another stares at Yuto in shock, asking if it's really true, and Yuto himself looks completely crushed, insisting this has to be some kind of joke. Tomata casually laughs, while Yuto awkwardly scratches his cheek, embarrassed by all the attention. And when she apologizes for accidentally telling everyone, he smiles and says he's glad she did. Meanwhile, Yuto dramatically laments that he was planning to use the cultural festival to improve his chances with someone, only to have his hopes destroyed before it even started. The conversation quickly shifts toward the upcoming school festival season, and one of the girls excitedly explains that their school does things differently, by holding both the sports festival and the cultural festival on consecutive days. Each class is assigned a color and competes against the others, earning points through both athletic events and their festival exhibits, with the overall winner decided at the end. Even Tomata seems slightly surprised hearing all the details, as they explain preparations are already beginning because the executive committee was chosen while she and Yuto were absent. When asked what the two of them were doing during that time, Yuto awkwardly admits they went on a date, earning another amused reaction as someone quietly calls them a delinquent couple. Before the conversation can continue much further, their teacher enters the classroom and announces the start of homeroom, telling everyone to return to their seats. As the class settles down, another student calmly steps forward and introduces himself as Naruse Kento, revealing that he was selected for the Cultural Festival Executive Committee. With a composed smile, he explains that he'd like to use this opportunity to decide what kind of exhibit their class will put on during the festival. Naruse calmly takes control of the discussion, asking the class for suggestions on what kind of exhibit they should do for the cultural festival. And ideas immediately start flying around the room: plays, haunted houses, crepe stands, until the votes are finally counted. With a smile, Naruse announces that their class will be putting on a play, specifically Snow White. Tomata's eyes light up at the idea, while Yuto quietly reacts to himself, already imagining how perfectly the role of Snow White would suit her. She excitedly asks if he's ever acted in a play before, and when he awkwardly says no, she laughs and admits she hasn't either, adding that she's actually excited about it. Then, without hesitation, she suggests that the two of them volunteer as actors together. Yuto is caught off guard, especially when she casually points out that they might even end up with matching roles. But after seeing how excited she is, he gives in and agrees. Naruse quickly begins assigning parts, explaining that they already have all the roles prepared and only need candidates now. Almost immediately, one of the girls raises her hand and suggests that Tomata should play Snow White because she's pretty, noticeable, and naturally stands out. The class immediately agrees, voices piling on as everyone encourages her to do it. Tomata looks genuinely surprised at first and even suggests drawing lots instead. But Naruse calmly tells her that if she doesn't mind the role, she's free to take it. After a brief pause, she shyly agrees, saying she'll do it. Then attention turns toward the prince. Naruse smiles and jokingly says he'd like to nominate himself, which instantly shocks Yuto, only for Naruse to laugh it off, and instead announce that all the boys who volunteered will draw lots fairly. One by one, the boys step forward nervously while Yuto silently prays not to get chosen, desperately hoping another guy will end up as the prince instead. But the moment he unfolds his paper, his heart sinks. He got it. The class immediately erupts with excitement, while Yuto internally panics, convinced this is the worst possible outcome. Naruse meanwhile simply smiles and congratulates him, before telling Tomata he'll leave her in his care. Classmates excitedly comment on how perfect the pairing looks already, especially since Naruse is in the drama club. Then Naruse steps closer to Tomata and politely tells her that once the script is finished, they should practice together after school, so he can teach her how to act properly. Tomata happily agrees, completely innocent about it, but the moment Yuto watches the two of them standing there together, alarm immediately starts ringing in his head. This is bad. After class, Naruse casually tells Tomata they should practice together later, smiling naturally while she agrees without hesitation. And the moment Yuto watches the two of them interact, uneasiness immediately starts creeping back into his chest. At first he tries brushing it off, wondering if he's just overthinking things, but then he notices how easily Tomata seems to get along with Naruse. She even comments that he's a pretty cool guy, and hearing that makes his stomach twist. The more he watches them together, the worse the thoughts become. What if they keep getting closer? What if something changes? He immediately shakes his head, trying to force those thoughts away, while desperately telling himself that would never happen. He has to trust Tomata. Still, even after repeating that to himself all day, the anxiety never disappears. Wanting to calm down, he decides to clear his head for a bit, but before he can leave, he overhears Naruse talking with someone nearby. Naruse casually admits that he rigged the lottery. The words stop Yuto cold. Naruse openly says he didn't care what methods he had to use because only the end result matters to him. Then, without any shame at all, he reveals the truth. He doesn't actually care about the play itself. To him, the whole thing is just a convenient excuse to get closer to Kubaru-chan. Yuto listens in stunned silence as Naruse laughs and says it doesn't matter that she already has a boyfriend. Whoever manages to take the girl away, wins. The moment those words sink in, Yuto's chest tightens. All the fear he tried suppressing comes rushing back at once. If things keep going like this, Tomata might really be taken away from him. Sweat runs down his face as panic starts consuming him, and the thought alone becomes unbearable. No, that can't happen. He grabs his head desperately, trying to think, until suddenly, a cold realization settles into his mind. The answer is simple. Naruse just has to disappear. And as that thought fully takes root inside him, his expression slowly changes, his eyes losing their hesitation completely. The fear keeps growing inside Yuto, until it twists into something violent. Naruse's words repeat over and over, how he rigged the lottery just to get close to Tomata, how he didn't care that she already had a boyfriend, how whoever steals the girl wins. The thought alone becomes unbearable. And in the middle of those dark emotions, he imagines himself grabbing Naruse by the throat, declaring that anyone who stands in his way will be eliminated. Then suddenly, he wakes up. Breathing hard in bed, he stares blankly for a moment before realizing it was only a dream. Tomata is already there beside him, casually greeting him good morning, and asking what's wrong when she notices his expression. But he quickly brushes it off, and forces himself to calm down. At school he keeps thinking about the cultural festival. There's still 1 month left until it begins. All he has to do is stop Naruse somehow. So he approaches him directly. Smiling calmly, Yuto asks whether they really need a spare actor for the play. Naruse looks slightly surprised but casually replies that it's fine, and that he's never gotten sick during a play before. Yuto simply smiles back and wishes him the best of luck. But inside, his thoughts have already changed completely. If there's no spare actor, then things become much simpler. He only needs to get rid of one person. Later, while helping with preparations, Yuto checks in on Aihara as she works on the costumes. She happily tells him everything's going smoothly thanks to his help, but admits there's still one thing left. Naruse and Kubaru's costumes need to be delivered. Since she's too nervous to speak with Naruse directly, Yuto immediately offers to bring them to him instead. Aihara thanks him brightly, though as Yuto walks away carrying the costumes, she quietly notices something strange about him, but he immediately dismisses it in his own mind. Surely not. A little while later, Naruse arrives near the rooftop stairs after receiving Yuto's message. Confused, he asks why they needed to meet there just to hand over costumes. Yuto stands silently for a moment. Then he suddenly shoves him. Naruse stumbles backward in shock, nearly losing his balance near the stairs, and for one terrifying instant everything goes completely still. Naruse slowly looks up with dead eyes, while Yuto quietly exhales in relief, muttering that thank goodness, it was just the right size. And standing there in the prince costume he was supposed to deliver, Yuto calmly adjusts the outfit, while staring down at Naruse with completely emotionless eyes. The next day at school, news quickly spreads that Naruse fell down the stairs and ended up hospitalized. And when the teacher asks what happened, Yuto calmly steps forward and explains that Naruse tripped and fell. The class is more focused on the sudden problem the play now faces. Without Naruse, they need a replacement for the prince role immediately. Ryoya awkwardly suggests maybe he should volunteer, but before he can continue, Yuto suddenly grabs him and tells him to stay quiet. Smiling naturally, he points out that the prince costume is already finished, so it would be better to choose someone with a similar build instead. He says, the costume would probably fit Ryoya poorly. Aihara looks over at Yuto and softly comments that you and Naruse do have pretty similar physiques. Tomata agrees too, saying the costume should fit Yuto just fine instead. Caught off guard for a second, Yuto pauses, then quietly accepts it, saying he'll try his best. Just like that, the role of prince becomes his. As preparations continue, everyone starts working together smoothly. Yuto encourages the group not to waste Tomata's efforts, and to make the play a success, while Tomata smiles happily beside him. For a while, everything almost feels peaceful again. Later, the two of them end up alone together on the stage after school. Tomata cheerfully says things are going well, and excitedly asks if they should practice their lines right now. Yuto awkwardly agrees, as she immediately throws herself into the scene, acting out Snow White's death after taking a bite from the poisoned apple, before dramatically collapsing onto the stage floor. Yuto freezes for a moment before slowly kneeling beside her. Trying to stay in character, he softly delivers the prince's line, calling her beautiful, while looking down at her lying there. But as he stares at her peaceful expression, his face gradually turns red, emotion slipping through the performance itself. Tomata notices immediately, still lying there on the stage. She quietly opens her eyes and looks straight at him, before softly asking the question that instantly stops his heart. It was you, wasn't it? Still lying on the stage, Tomata quietly asks if it was him, her eyes locked onto Yuto as the question hangs heavily between them. For a moment, he freezes, then forces a smile and asks what she means, pretending not to understand. But Tomata simply stares back and softly says, he already knows what she's talking about. Yuto keeps denying it, insisting he has no idea. And after watching him for another second, Tomata slowly says she hopes she's wrong. Then, almost casually, she reminds him that he's supposed to be the prince in the story. The prince isn't the one who feeds Snow White the poisoned apple. Yuto awkwardly laughs and asks what she's even talking about. But Tomata only smiles faintly and says, you never know, anyone can write their own story. Still, she doesn't push him any further. Instead, she gently tells him that he doesn't need to understand everything. As long as he's happy, that's all she wants. Then she smiles brightly again and says they should just enjoy the cultural festival together. The festival day finally arrives, filling the school with noise and excitement as students move between exhibits and decorations cover the halls. Yuto quietly watches everything around him, trying to settle his thoughts. Until familiar faces suddenly appear nearby. Naruse is there. Standing beside him is Hiro. Yuto stiffens immediately as Naruse casually greets him and asks how his injuries are doing, acting as if nothing happened, while Hiro smiles and happily calls out to Tomata. Tomata lights up the moment she sees her and excitedly rushes over, clearly happy she came. The next second, Hiro suddenly wraps her arms tightly around Tomata and says she missed her. Tomata laughs in surprise, while Naruse completely loses his composure beside them, shouting in shock at how close they are. Hiro calmly tells him they're both girls. But Naruse immediately argues that being girls doesn't mean she can just hug her whenever she wants. Hiro stares at him coldly and asks who he even is, brushing him off as just Tomata's friend, while continuing to cling to her anyway. Watching the ridiculous argument unfold in front of him, Yuto quietly relaxes for the first time in a while. As he looks at Tomata smiling happily between them, he thinks to himself that this is his first cultural festival with her. And somehow, it feels like this one might actually be fun. The cultural festival continues with the four of them awkwardly walking together, while Naruse keeps complaining that Hiro is way too close to Tomata, only for Hiro to glare back and ask what his problem is. Yuto quickly steps in, trying to calm things down before suggesting they all grab something to eat together. And Tomata immediately lights up at the idea, happily pointing toward one of the food stalls. A little later, they run into Ihara again, while carrying snacks, and she nervously asks Tomata if she memorized all her lines yet. Tomata confidently says she did, though she admits it still feels different performing in front of a real audience. Then, smiling mischievously, she points out that Yuto is actually even more nervous than she is. Naruse laughs and pats Yuto on the shoulder, jokingly telling him to break a leg during the play, while proudly holding up a camera, announcing that he'll personally capture Kubaru-chan's brilliant performance. Yuto forces a smile and quietly begs him not to put more pressure on him than he already has. But just as the moment starts feeling normal again, someone suddenly calls his name. Yuto turns around and freezes. Naruse is standing there alone. The atmosphere instantly changes. Naruse calmly says it's been a while, and comments that Yuto seems to be doing well, but Yuto can barely respond. Naruse slowly steps closer, staring directly into his eyes, before quietly asking why he looks like he's seen a ghost. Then, leaning in with a smile that no longer looks friendly, he says Yuto can't really be blamed for reacting that way. After all, he reminds Yuto exactly what happened. Yuto tried to kill him by pushing him down the stairs. The words hit like a knife. Tomata notices the tension immediately and asks what Naruse is talking about, but Yuto quickly forces out an awkward laugh, pretending he has no idea either. Naruse instantly grabs him by the shirt and yanks him forward, telling him to stop playing dumb because he knows exactly who pushed him. His expression hardens as he says the words clearly this time. That was attempted murder. Naruse demands an answer, calling him a psycho-criminal, while Yuto stays completely silent for a moment, his face hidden beneath the shadow of his bangs. Then slowly, something changes. A smile spreads across his face. Naruse hesitates slightly, caught off guard by the sudden reaction, while Yuto calmly adjusts his grip on Naruse's shirt and softly says they should both calm down and have a talk. Naruse completely loses his temper, grabbing him by the shirt and shouting that this isn't something they can casually discuss. The commotion quickly draws attention, and people nearby immediately step in to separate them, confusedly asking what happened. Naruse points directly at Yuto and yells that he's the one who pushed him down the stairs. The accusation instantly changes the atmosphere. Everyone turns toward Yuto in shock, and after a long silence, someone quietly asks if it's true. Yuto lowers his head for a moment, then calmly says he didn't do it. Naruse stares at him in disbelief. He demands to know how Yuto can stand there acting normal after trying to kill him, shouting at him to stop lying. But Yuto simply repeats himself in a quiet voice. He isn't lying. Then, little by little, he begins rewriting the story. He softly explains that Naruse simply slipped and fell while he was trying to hand him the costume. He even says he reached out to grab him, but he wasn't fast enough. Then he apologizes, saying that if he had reacted quicker, Naruse never would have ended up in the hospital. As Yuto keeps speaking calmly, something strange starts happening. Naruse's expression slowly changes. Confusion replaces anger, as his thoughts begin turning hazy, almost like his memory itself is being overwritten by Yuto's words. "You didn't push me." Yuto smiles gently and tells him everything's okay now. He places a hand on Naruse's shoulder, reassuring him that he's finally calmed down. And after hesitating for a moment, Naruse quietly agrees. Then Tomata suddenly calls out to Yuto with a bright smile, reminding him that it's almost time for the play to start. Yuto immediately turns back toward her as if nothing happened, and the others relax too, relieved that the misunderstanding was settled peacefully. One of them even happily comments that they're glad everything worked out. As they begin walking away together, Naruse's father smiles proudly nearby, introducing himself while talking about enjoying youth and friendships. But Yuto barely listens anymore, because in that moment, he finally understands something terrifying. Tomata wasn't the only one with the power to control people. The realization quietly settles into his mind while Tomata watches him with interest. Then, smiling softly at him, she says something simple. She never gets bored of him. The time for the play finally arrives, and as the curtains stay closed, the sound of the packed audience echoes through the hall, making the pressure suddenly feel real. Tomata peeks through the curtain in her snow-white costume and excitedly whispers that the entire place is full, admitting she never expected such a huge crowd. Meanwhile, Yuto is falling apart backstage. Dressed as the prince, he crouches down while trembling, confessing that he feels like he's going to throw up because he's never done anything like this before. Tomata notices immediately and gently asks if he's okay. After struggling to steady himself, Yuto finally forces out an answer. As long as she's with him, he says, he'll be fine. Tomata smiles brightly and tells him that's great before heading toward the stage first. The moment the spotlight falls on her, the atmosphere changes completely. Her presence instantly draws everyone's attention, captivating the audience effortlessly as she moves through the performance like she was born for it. Even Yuto, watching from backstage, quietly admits to himself that Tomata is incredible. Her charm feels endless, impossible to resist. And that thought slowly twists into fear again. If nobody in the world can resist her charm, then will he really be able to keep her to himself forever? Standing alone behind the curtain, Yuto quietly answers his own question. Yes, he will, no matter what methods he has to use. The play continues until the final scene arrives. Snow White lies peacefully inside the coffin, surrounded by flowers, while Yuto steps forward as the prince, softly speaking the line about how beautiful she is, before leaning closer. Then he kisses her. For a brief second, the audience falls completely silent. Tomata's eyes suddenly open in surprise beneath him as the crowd erupts into noise around them. And just like the story says, with the prince's kiss, Snow White awakens. The audience bursts into applause as the two of them stand together, beneath the stage lights, hand in hand, completing the ending of the play. But while the cheers continue around him, Yuto's thoughts drift somewhere darker. He quietly looks down at his own hand. If he wants a happy ending, then he'll use these hands to seize it himself. Even if he has to control everything to get there. Even if it means using the poison of control. After the play ends, the applause still echoes through the school as Yuto and Tomata walk backstage together. Both still dressed in costume, the excitement from the performance lingering between them. Tomata smiles brightly and says the play was a blast, while Yuto quietly agrees, still dazed from everything that happened on stage. Then her so-called father suddenly comes charging toward them in complete panic, loudly demanding to know if that kiss during the play was real. He grabs Yuto by the shoulders and desperately insists it had to be fake. His face completely serious as he begs for confirmation. Yuto freezes immediately, unable to answer. Tomata watches the reaction for a second before casually stepping in with a smile and bluntly admitting that it really was a real kiss. He instantly explodes while Yuto nearly dies from embarrassment beside him. But then Tomata suddenly bursts into laughter, waving her hand and saying she was joking. She quickly explains they only pretended to kiss for the play, asking Yuto to back her up, and after a short pause, he, awkwardly, goes along with it. Still, even after the conversation moves on, the thought keeps lingering inside him. Does Tomata actually have feelings for him? Or is he really nothing more than another fish swimming in the ocean around her? The insecurity quietly eats at him until he finally clenches his hand and forces himself to push those thoughts away. Even if that's true, it doesn't change anything. They kissed, because they're a couple. Yuto apologizes to him for not telling him earlier, then firmly promises that he'll make Tomata happy, no matter what. He stares at him for a moment, before finally sighing in defeat, warning him that if he ever makes her cry, the two of them are diving off that cliff together again. Yuto immediately straightens up and nervously agrees. Later that evening, after the festival dies down, Yuto and Tomata quietly slip away together, to a park. Sitting beside each other on a bench, with drinks in hand. Tomata congratulates him on doing a great job during the play, while he awkwardly asks if it was okay for them to sneak off like this, since everyone planned to eat together afterward. But Tomata calmly says there's still time for that later. Because right now, she just wanted to be alone with him. Yuto looks at her in surprise, as she softly admits that seeing him earlier made her really happy. And leaning gently against his shoulder, she quietly says she wants to stay with him a little longer. After a moment, Yuto softly agrees, letting her rest against him while the two of them sit there together in the quiet evening. But hidden deeper in the park, someone silently watches them from the shadows. And staring at the two of them together, Hiro quietly murmurs to herself that they look so bright. Later that night, everyone gathers together for dinner after the festival. Plates of food spread across the table, while conversations and laughter fill the room around them. Tomata happily chats with the others beside Yuto, but sitting quietly among them, Hiro feels completely disconnected from the warmth surrounding her. Holding her drink silently, she stares ahead and quietly realizes something painful. She's alone. Later, the scene shifts to Hiro, sitting by herself near the window at night. The city lights glowing behind her, as the loneliness inside her slowly grows heavier. The next time she sees Tomata, she tries acting normal, awkwardly responding when Tomata excitedly asks if she's tried any of the food yet. Tomata smiles brightly and says her dad's fried chicken tastes great, proudly insisting Hiro should try it too. Hiro quietly admits that it really is good. Tomata happily laughs and says she's glad they got to hang out again after so long. Hiro softly agrees, but as she looks at Tomata smiling in front of her, another thought quietly surfaces inside her. Is she really happy to see her? Or is Hiro already unnecessary, now that Yuto exists? The thoughts only get louder, as Tomata casually talks about hanging out together again sometime. Hiro watches her closely, while something painful twists in her chest. Aren't Yuto and Tomata already enough for each other? Aren't the two of them satisfied being alone together? But before she can say any of it out loud, Tomata suddenly calls Yuto over with a bright smile, immediately shifting all of her attention toward him. And that's when Hiro finally understands what hurts so much. She wants Tomata to look at her more, to pay more attention to her, to love her more. Even knowing those feelings are selfish, Hiro can't stop them anymore. She watches the two of them standing together, and quietly admits to herself that Yuto is already everything Tomata needs. She knows she's being greedy. She knows she's wrong for feeling this way. But it still hurts. And as that pain grows stronger inside her, Hiro finally reaches a frightening conclusion. If Tomata truly is her god, then why won't she save her too? Meanwhile, Yuto walks home alone after the festival, quietly listening to music through his phone, while the city settles into silence around him. But as he stares down at the screen while walking, dark hands suddenly begin reaching toward him, from the shadows behind his back. Dark hands clamp over his mouth before he can even react. His phone flies from his hand and crashes to the ground, as he struggles in panic, eyes widening while someone drags him backward into the darkness. The next day at school, Tomata notices something is wrong almost immediately. She calls Yuto's phone while walking through the hallway, but there's no answer. Then she notices his phone ringing by itself somewhere nearby, abandoned and unattended. The moment she realizes he isn't picking up, her expression changes. Something happened to him. Without hesitation, she quietly says she has to find him. Meanwhile, on a rooftop somewhere in the city, Yuto is tied up on the ground, with his hands restrained behind his back. Standing over him is Hiro. She calmly looks down at him, and admits she's surprised by how composed he seems, despite the situation. But Yuto only smiles faintly. He tells her he wouldn't call himself calm at all. In fact, he admits he's terrified. When he thinks about what Hiro might do to him, about the possibility that she could kill him right there, he can't help being afraid. Then his expression shifts slightly. Still smiling, he quietly points out something important. Thankfully, She didn't gag him, which means they can talk. Hiro stares at him silently, while the wind blows across the rooftop, tension hanging heavily between them. Yuto slowly raises his eyes toward her, and calmly calls her by name. Sachigawa Hiro-san, let's talk. Hiro stares back at him coldly, questioning how he can even think about having a conversation in a situation like this. She asks if he's really certain she won't kill him, and without hesitation, Yuto quietly answers that he isn't certain at all. He admits he genuinely doesn't understand why this is happening, which is exactly why he wanted to hear the reason directly from her. Looking up at Hiro, he asks the question plainly. Why did she want to kill him? What did he do to deserve this? Yuto says he needs to know, begging her to tell him her side of things. And after a long silence, Hiro finally starts speaking. She quietly says there's really nothing complicated about it. She just wants Tomata to look at her. That's all there is to it. Yuto listens silently as Hiro confesses everything she's been bottling up inside. She says she wants Tomata to notice her, to look directly at her instead of always looking somewhere else. Tomata is the only thing she truly needs in her life, and yet no matter how much she loves her, no matter how willing she is to throw everything away for her sake, she still can't understand why she isn't the one chosen to stand beside her. Then at the very least, she wants Tomata to remain a god, because gods are supposed to stay distant, untouchable, above everyone else. And if Tomata is going to stay her god, then Hiro believes she has to remove everything unnecessary around her. Slowly, painfully, Hiro admits the conclusion she reached. Anyone else close to her, and especially Yuto, God has no need for him. Her trembling hands slowly reach toward Yuto's throat as tears gather in her eyes, and while choking him, she quietly whispers that he has to die for the sake of her god. But instead of panicking, Yuto suddenly starts laughing. At first it's quiet, then louder and louder, until it completely unsettles Hiro, making her stop in confusion as she asks why he's laughing. Yuto slowly catches his breath, and finally looks up at her with a calm smile. She's right. Tomata probably doesn't need him at all. But then he quietly points out something else, by the same logic. Tomata doesn't need Hiro either. The words hit her instantly. And before she can react, Yuto calmly loosens the rope around his wrists, revealing that he had already undone it himself. Standing up slowly while Hiro stares in shock, he looks directly at her and softly says the truth neither of them wanted to admit. The two of them are exactly the same. Both of them desperately cling to someone who would never truly need them, and smiling faintly with those unsettling eyes, Yuto quietly declares that gods don't need either of them. The words shake her far more than she expected. The rooftop falls silent as the two stare at each other, tension thick between them, until Yuto quietly continues. Tomata doesn't truly look at anyone. No matter how hard they struggle, no matter how badly they want her attention, nothing will change that fact. Hiro immediately snaps back, shouting that he's wrong. She insists that if she kills Yuto, then Tomata will finally look at her, even if Tomata stares at her with pure anger. At least then she'll finally be seen. After all, Yuto is the one Tomata chose. If he were to die, then maybe things would change. But before Hiro can sink deeper into those thoughts, another voice suddenly interrupts from behind them. Tomata is already there on the rooftop, sitting casually nearby. She calmly looks over at the situation and asks Hiro if this was her doing. Hiro freezes instantly, while Tomata simply hums to herself and casually says, "Oh well." The reaction completely breaks Hiro's composure. She clutches her head in confusion, unable to process what's happening. Why isn't Tomata angry? Why doesn't she care? Desperately, Hiro screams for her to stop, asking what's going on, because the only reason she did any of this was to make Kubaru-chan finally look at her. The only person Tomata truly needs in front of her right now is Yuto Kiba. And hearing those words finally destroys the illusion Hiro had been clinging to. Yuto calmly smiles and explains it in the simplest way possible. If Kubaru-chan is a god, then he is her speaker, the one closest to her, the one chosen to stand beside her. Hiro slowly lowers her head as everything finally becomes clear in the worst possible way. From the very beginning, there was never any place for her beside Tomata. No matter what she did, she could never become the one standing there. Her voice trembles as she quietly calls Yuto's name one last time. Then, with tears running down her face and a broken smile forming, Hiro reaches her hand toward him and desperately begs for the one thing she wanted all along. "Look at me. Rain begins pouring across the rooftop as Hiro stands there trembling, admitting that as long as Yuto exists, she'll never be able to make Tamata look at her. But even if she kills him, she quietly realizes nothing will really change. Tamata still won't truly see her. Through the rain, Hiro shakily asks Yuto a simple question. Does he see her? Yuto quietly answers that he does. They're standing there looking directly at each other right now, so shouldn't that be enough? But Hiro immediately shakes her head. That's not what she means at all. She doesn't want to simply be looked at for a moment and forgotten afterward. She wants to be engraved into someone's memory forever. Needed by someone, remembered by someone. Because otherwise she feels like she may as well be a ghost. Rainwater streams down her face as she admits that even if Tamata never truly notices her, she still wants at least one thing. She wants Yuto to remember her. Yuto stares at her silently for a moment, before quietly calling her pathetic. He asks if she really intends to keep living her life terrified of being forgotten by everyone. Hiro lowers her head while he calmly continues, saying that people can never guarantee they'll remember someone forever. In fact, forgetting people is often easier, simpler, less exhausting. After all, constantly carrying every memory and emotion forever would be unbearable. So, Yuto tells her to stop already, to just give up. And finally Hiro softly agrees. She says he's right. She'll never get what she truly wants. Then she suddenly calls his name one last time and asks him to watch carefully and never forget. Before Yuto can react, Hiro climbs onto the rooftop railing. His eyes widen instantly as she smiles weakly through the rain and tells him it's a promise. Then she falls backward into the darkness below. Yuto rushes toward the edge in horror, grabbing the railing while staring down in shock as the realization crashes into him all at once. He can kill people just by talking to them. The rain keeps pouring around him while he stands there frozen, unable to move. Then, suddenly the rooftop door bursts open behind him. Tamata rushes onto the rooftop, breathing heavily from running, and the moment she sees his face, her expression immediately changes with concern. Quietly calling his name, she asks him if he's okay. Tamata quietly watches him for a moment, before softly agreeing. As they leave, she mentions that he dropped some things earlier, and that she left them by the stair landing, handing his belongings back to him, while Yuto quietly thanks her. But later that night, the rain-soaked rooftops still won't leave his mind. The next morning, Yuto wakes up burning with fever. Tamata immediately notices something's wrong, and rushes to his side, while he weakly admits he probably caught a cold from being out in the rain. Even while feeling miserable, he awkwardly tells her to stay back, so she doesn't catch it too. But instead, she suddenly presses her forehead against his to check his temperature, leaving him completely flustered. The moment she realizes how hot he is, she brightly declares that she'll take care of him today. Tamata quickly calls the school for him, makes porridge, and happily insists on feeding him herself, despite his embarrassed protests. Sitting beside his bed in an apron, smiling while holding the spoon toward him, she gently orders him to open up, while Yuto's face turns bright red from the closeness. In the end, he gives in and lets her feed him. As Yuto watches her smiling while taking care of him, his feelings only grow heavier. He loves her so much, that he never wants to let her go. He doesn't want her looking at anyone else. He wants her eyes focused only on him forever. Because she's all he needs. Eventually, while resting in bed, Yuto quietly asks her something that's been eating away at him. He softly asks how she really feels about him. Tamata immediately laughs a little, teasing him by asking if his fever made him anxious. Then she casually points out that he never calls her Kubaru-chan. Yuto admits that's because everyone else calls her that. He wants to be special to her, different from everyone else. Tamata listens quietly for a moment, before smiling and understanding. Then she says something calm and frightening at the same time. Everyone wants to be special to someone. People struggle desperately for that feeling, and eventually, they start breaking down because of it. Yuto's expression tightens as memories of Hiro flash through his mind. Tamata softly asks if he's seen that happen already. Gently reaching toward him, she smiles and tells him not to break down on her too. Leaning closer until their faces nearly touch, she whispers for him to stay with her forever. And smiling sweetly, Tamata asks him to keep playing with her forever and ever. Deep down, he already understands something painful. No matter what he says or does, he'll probably always just be another toy for her to play with. And yet, even knowing that, he still wants to stay beside her forever. The next morning, Tomata happily checks his temperature and announces that his fever's finally gone down. Relieved, she says it was good the cold didn't last long, before immediately insisting they should still visit the hospital just in case. Yuto awkwardly agrees, but after hesitating for a moment, he suddenly asks her something else instead. Once he's feeling completely better, would she go on another date with him? Tomata instantly lights up, saying that sounds fun, and, when she asks where he wants to go, Yuto shyly admits he'd like to visit an amusement park. He quickly gets embarrassed afterward, muttering that maybe it's a little too much, especially since he's never been to one before. But Tomata excitedly says it sounds perfect. Then she starts happily planning the entire day out loud. They'll spend the whole day together, stay until sunset, and finish by walking along the beach at night, because beaches are romantic after dark. Yuto nervously points out that sounds like an incredibly long date. But Tomata just laughs and says the beach is nearby anyway, so there's no problem. Soon enough, the day of the date finally arrives. The moment Yuto sees Tomata waiting for him outside the amusement park, in casual clothes, he completely freezes. She looks unbelievably cute, enough to leave him blushing instantly, while Tomata tilts her head and asks what's wrong. Panicking, Yuto blurts out that she's way too cute, admitting that even though they've already been dating, seeing her like this is making his heart race all over again. Tomata bursts into laughter at his reaction, before teasingly asking if she's really that cute. Yuto can barely look at her properly anymore, while she leans closer with a mischievous smile, completely enjoying how flustered he's getting. Then, happily wrapping herself around his arm, she praises his reaction and suggests they go buy matching souvenir headbands together. Yuto's face turns even redder as she clings tightly to him while they walk side by side into the amusement park together. And as he quietly looks at Tomata smiling beside him, a single thought slowly settles into his heart. If only moments like this could last forever. The date continues exactly the way Tomata imagined it, the two of them wandering through the amusement park together, while she excitedly drags Yuto from one attraction to another. They stop by a souvenir shop first, where Tomata immediately finds a pair of matching animal ear headbands and happily puts one on herself before insisting Yuto wear the other two. Yuto dies from embarrassment the moment she smiles at him with matching ears and asks how she looks. She's way too cute. Even after finally giving in and putting one on himself, he can barely handle how adorable she looks, while Tomata happily praises him, saying the headband suits him perfectly. Afterward, they spend the entire day together exactly like a normal couple. They hold hands while walking through the park, take photos together, eat oversized desserts and snacks, and laugh over little things as time slips by faster and faster. Watching Tomata smiling beside him, while sunlight reflects in her eyes, Yuto quietly starts wishing for something impossible. If only the world would just end like this. If the earth crumbled apart and everyone disappeared, leaving only the two of them behind forever. Maybe that would be enough. The thought scares him for a second, but it also feels strangely comforting. Eventually, evening arrives, and just like Tomata planned, the two of them head to the beach together. The sun is already beginning to sink into the horizon, while waves quietly roll onto the shore. Yuto softly comments on how low the sun already is, and Tomata smiles, while saying, time always seems to fly by whenever she's with him. Yuto quietly agrees. As they walk barefoot through the water together, Yuto asks if she really wanted to leave the amusement park that early, since they could have stayed until closing time. But Tomata simply smiles and admits the truth. She wanted time alone with him. The answer makes his chest tighten again. Then, while splashing lightly through the water, Tomata suddenly says something unexpected. If she were going to die someday, she thinks she'd want it to happen on a day like today. The mood slowly shifts as memories begin surfacing inside him. Meeting Tomata for the first time, being saved by her, everything that happened afterward. He quietly tells her that every single day since meeting her has felt like a blessing, even if being around her can sometimes feel painful too. Then, finally, he confesses the truth he's been hiding. He feels himself becoming worse and worse, greedier, more twisted. Being with her is terrifying because he can feel himself slipping away, little by little, and sometimes the emotions inside him become so overwhelming that they scare even him. If he had known he'd end up feeling like this, tears begin running down his face as he forces the words out. Maybe it would have been better if he had died that day instead. The beach falls silent. Tomata simply stares at him quietly for a moment, while the waves continue crashing behind them. With a soft smile that doesn't change at all, she asks him a simple question. Shall we die together? Instead of answering right away, Yuto suddenly pulls her tightly into his arms. His hands tremble as he buries his face against her shoulder, holding on to her like he's terrified she'll disappear if he lets go. Then, through tears, he softly thanks her. But even after everything he just said, even after admitting how badly he's been falling apart inside, he realizes something important. He still wants to stay with her longer. He wants to keep seeing her smile. Tomata quietly listens, while he struggles to put his feelings into words, and after hearing him out, she suddenly smiles brightly and says she guesses she can't die yet either. The answer catches him completely off guard. For a second, Yuto just stares at her silently while waves crash behind them. Tomata tilts her head and asks if she said something wrong, but he quickly wipes his tears away and quietly says no, because the truth is simple. He loves her. He loves her so much that he doesn't even know how to handle it anymore. And hearing those feelings out loud, Tomata softly smiles back at him before calmly confessing something herself. She's in love with him too. The words hit him harder than anything else that day. A little later, Tomata gently asks if he's feeling better now, and Yuto finally manages to smile honestly again. He apologizes for letting his emotions overwhelm him, quietly admitting that he needs to become stronger if he wants to stay by her side. Tomata immediately wraps her arms around him again and softly tells him he doesn't need to worry about anything. Crying like that just means poor Yuto needs saving again. Then, smiling gently while holding his face in her hands, she promises something frighteningly comforting. She'll take even more control over him and save him herself. She'll take away all of his pain, and with the sound of the ocean quietly echoing around them, Tomata smiles sweetly and tells him it's time to go home. After returning home from the beach date, Tomata happily flops onto the couch and says today was fun, smiling so brightly that Yuto can't help smiling back too, as he admits the day passed by unbelievably fast. Then Tomata suddenly looks at him and softly calls his name, before casually suggesting something that completely destroys his composure. She wants them to take a bath together. Yuto instantly freezes, while Tomata excitedly grabs his arm and drags him along before he can properly react. A few moments later, the two of them are sitting together in the bathtub, steam filling the room, while Yuto sits completely stiff beside her, his face burning bright red. Tomata notices immediately and laughs softly, teasing him about how red he is before openly admiring his body, saying he's more muscular than she expected. Yuto nearly dies from embarrassment while she leans closer and closer, completely enjoying his reaction. Then, in the middle of the teasing, Tomata suddenly asks something unexpected. Does he know what happened to Hiro? The question instantly changes everything. Yuto stiffens, while Tomata casually explains that she thought it was strange Hiro suddenly stopped contacting her. Then she says she saw the news. Hiro is dead. And just by coincidence, it happened the same day Yuto disappeared. Tomata quietly stares into his eyes while asking him to tell her what happened that day. She softly says he knows something, doesn't he? For a long moment, Yuto stays silent. Then finally, he begins speaking. He tells her Hiro abducted him and brought him to the rooftop. She intended to kill him. At first, he says he thought he only acted to save himself, but halfway through speaking he stops. Because deep down, he already knows that wasn't the real reason at all. Tears begin forming in his eyes as he finally confesses the truth. He didn't want Hiro taking Tomata away from him. He couldn't stand the thought of losing her, and because of that, he killed Hiro with his words. The bathroom falls completely silent. Tomata quietly stares at him, while Yuto lowers his head in guilt and fear, waiting for her reaction. But after a few seconds, Tomata's eyes slowly widen, with fascination instead. Then she smiles. Softly, almost excitedly, she tells him that means he can do it too. Yuto looks up in confusion, while Tomata calmly admits something horrifying. She's done it before as well. She's killed someone with nothing but her words, without changing her expression at all. She quietly reveals who it was. Her father, her real biological father. Tomata says she killed him because she had always wanted him dead. But even while saying those horrifying words so casually, she admits there's still something she doesn't understand. She still doesn't know anything about people like herself, people who can destroy others so easily, just through words and emotions. To her, people like that are impossible to fully understand. Later that night, Yuto lies awake in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to stop thinking about everything they confessed to each other. So much has happened since meeting Tomata Kubaru, and even now, she still feels like an unsolvable mystery to him. But despite that, he quietly decides something. He wants to know more about her. He wants to keep learning who she really is. If he understands her enough, maybe he'll finally be able to make her happy. The next morning, the two of them walk to school together, while Yuto looks half dead from exhaustion. Tamada immediately notices and teasingly asks if he couldn't sleep. Flustered, Yuto awkwardly admits that maybe he stayed awake thinking too much. And Tamada happily offers to sing him a lullaby next time, or even sleep beside him if it would help. Yuto nearly explodes from embarrassment, quickly insisting that would only make things worse. As they continue walking, they suddenly run into Ryoya and Aihara together. The moment Yuto sees them standing side by side, he immediately stares suspiciously, while Kiba awkwardly explains they just happened to run into each other on the way to school. Aihara nervously agrees, while Kiba casually adds that they've been chatting happily the whole time. Yuto instantly narrows his eyes and accuses Kiba of bullying her again. Kiba immediately shouts that he would never do that, offended by the accusation, while Yuto calmly mutters that bullies are usually the last people to admit they're bullies. The comment visibly hurts Kiba, leaving him speechless for a second, before he quietly admits Yuto does kind of have a point. After an awkward pause, Kiba suddenly asks Yuto something. Does he want to go to karaoke after school? Yuto assumes everyone's invited, but Kiba quickly corrects him. Not everyone, just the two of them. The answer completely catches Yuto off guard. Kiba awkwardly explains that Yuto's been avoiding him lately, so this might be his only chance to invite him out alone. Yuto stares at him suspiciously, while Kiba nervously sweats under the pressure. Then, Yuto immediately points out the real problem. If it's just the two of them, then that means Hiro and Aihara are getting a double date by themselves. Tamada happily waves and says they'll meet up later, while Yuto reluctantly agrees to the karaoke invitation anyway. And later that day, sitting beside Kiba inside the karaoke room, Yuto quietly buries his face in his hand and realizes something painful. So guys, we're gonna wrap up today's video. That was a damn long video, hope you enjoyed. Leave a like and comment down below your favorite part. See you next time. Till then, take care.